Chapter 1952. Lord Lan Ming, why didn't you kill him? After Chu Fengmian left, Wu Jue asked Lan Ming curiously in the palace. Could it be that you want to put him in an important position? Put him in an important position? I didn't kill him because he's still useful. Recently, I received news that some of the remaining members of the Lan family have appeared in the Shanghai star system. Lan Ming sneered. I've already received some news. Take a few more people to investigate in a few days. Let him live for a few more days and let him do something. Yes. Wu Ju responded respectfully. After leaving the palace, Chu Fengmian stepped onto the island. This island was called the Sacrificial Island. The disciples here were all disciples of the Sacrificial Pavilion. There was a set of clothes in the jade talisman that Wu Ju had given him. It was the clothes of a protector of the sea sacrifice sect. Chu Fengmian changed into this set of clothes. The disciples on the sacrificial island all bowed when they saw Chu Fengmian. The status of the sea sacrifice sect was very strict. Unless one had absolute strength, very few people dared to violate this rule. I didn't expect to sneak into the sacrificial pavilion like this. Lan Ming already thinks that I've been subdued. This is a good opportunity for me to get close to him. As long as I can get close to him, I can catch him off guard and kill him. Chu Fengmian hadn't expected that he would join the sacrificial pavilion as soon as he arrived at the sea sacrifice sect, and so many things would happen. However, all these accidents were just right for Chu Fengmian. Originally, it would have been very difficult for Chu Fengmian to get close to Lan Ming even if he had sneaked into the sea sacrifice sect. After all, Lan Ming's status was very high. If Chu Fengmian became a protector of another faction, he wouldn't have been qualified to get close to Lan Ming. However, now that Chu Fengmian had joined the sacrificial pavilion, Lan Ming would be Chu Fengmian's immediate superior. Chu Fengmian would have countless opportunities to get close to Lan Ming. Furthermore, Lan Ming had planted a restriction in Chu Fengmian's Dao heart, making Lan Ming think that Chu Fengmian had been subdued by him. In the future, when Chu Fengmian approached Lan Ming wouldn't be on guard. Chu Fengmian's sneak attack would be enough to catch Lan Ming off guard. However, all of this still needed to be discussed at length. Chu Fengmian observed the sacrificial island for a while. Seeing that there was nothing noteworthy on the island, he flew directly to a mountain peak in the center of the island. There were many palaces built on the mountainside of the mountain. Only the seed disciples, core disciples and protectors of the sacrificial island were qualified to occupy these palaces. Chu Fengmian casually found an empty palace and walked in. He sat in the palace and cultivated in seclusion. It seemed like he was recovering from his injuries. However, this was only a cover-up. Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness probed the jade talisman for information. This information was about the sea sacrifice sect, and so on. Of course, Chu Fengmian was a protector of the sea sacrifice sect. Although his status wasn't as high as an elder's, his status was still equal to that of a core disciple's. The various secrets recorded in the jade talisman were much more than what an ordinary disciple would know. Of course, these secrets didn't count for much. The jade talisman was only for Chu Fengmian to learn about the sea sacrifice sect and its various rules so that he could continue to cultivate in the sect. However, Chu Fengmian didn't really intend to become a protector. He just skimmed through the various rules and regulations of the sea sacrifice sect. What he was most concerned about was the sacrificial lake. Now that Chu Fengmian had infiltrated the sacrificial pavilion and become an elder, he was close to Lan Ming. The next step for Chu Fengmian was to sneak into the sacrificial lake and search for the colored glaze clean water. Lazuli pure water was located in the center of the sacrificial lake. It was said that there was a pool in the deepest part of the sacrificial lake. That pool contained lazuli pure water. A large amount of lazuli pure water. Chu Fengmian needed a large amount of lazuli pure water to neutralize the primordial blade and the demonic will in the demon emperor's heart. Chu Fengmian's brows furrowed tightly after he finished reading the contents of the jade talisman. The difficulty of sneaking into the sacrificial lake was much more difficult than Chu Fengmian had imagined. The sacrificial lake was the sacred land of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Not many core disciples were qualified to enter the sacrificial lake. Moreover, even the Sea Sacrifice sect disciples who were qualified to cultivate in the sacrificial lake could only venture to the periphery of the lake. Those who truly possessed lazuli pure water were the core disciples of the sacrificial lake. Even the Sea Sacrifice sect disciples who were qualified to cultivate in the sacrificial lake couldn't venture there. This also meant that Chu Fengmian's plan to earn contribution points in exchange for access to the sacrificial lake wouldn't work in the Sea Sacrifice sect. Even if he'd expended a lot of effort to obtain the qualifications, he could only venture to the periphery of the sacrificial lake. The depths of the sacrificial lake were related to all sorts of secrets of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Even core disciples weren't qualified to venture there. Only a few qualified elders of the Sea Sacrifice sect were allowed to participate in the ceremony. Lan Ming seems to have the qualifications. Chu Fengmian's eyes twinkled. Lan Ming's status was extremely high in the Sea Sacrifice sect. As an elder of the sacrificial pavilion, he was one of the elders qualified to enter the depths of the sacrificial lake. If Chu Fengmian could disguise himself as Lan Ming, he might be able to enter the depths of the sacrificial lake. However, if he wanted to disguise himself as Lan Ming, the first thing he had to do was kill Lan Ming. This wasn't that easy. Lan Ming's strength wasn't inferior to the Mad Dragon Emperor's before he'd transcended the celestial tribulation. Even if Chu Fengmian used all his strength now, it wouldn't be that easy to kill Lan Ming. Once Lan Ming was forced into a desperate situation, he could no longer suppress his strength and transcend the celestial tribulation. When the time came, Lan Ming's strength would increase 5 or 6 times. If Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Lan Ming, he had to kill him with a single strike. Otherwise, he might be annihilated if he was the slightest bit careless. Chu Fengmian had once experienced being hunted down by the overlooking sword Sea Emperor. The slightest bit of carelessness could lead to his death on the spot. Given Lan Ming's accumulation, once he transcended the celestial tribulation, his strength wouldn't be any weaker than the overlooking sword Sea Emperor's. When the time came, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious in a fight. Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Lan Ming, but he had to be fully prepared before making a move. Once he made a move, he had to choose to do it outside the Sea Sacrifice sect. If he made a move inside the Sea Sacrifice sect, even if Chu Fengmian could kill Lan Ming, he wouldn't be able to escape the pursuit of the Sea Sacrifice sect's powerhouses. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1953. When Chu Fengmian arrived at the Sea Sacrifice sect, he realized that the sect's strength was even more terrifying than the rumors. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, facing the entire Sea Sacrifice sect was like a mayfly trying to shake a tree. I can't deal with Lan Ming alone. I must find a helper. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. Chu Fengmian didn't have the confidence to deal with Lan Ming alone. Chu Fengmian moved his hand and a jade talisman appeared in his palm. This jade talisman represented Chu Fengmian as the Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian injected spiritual power into it and immediately sent a message to the Mad Dragon Emperor, asking him to come to the Blue Dragon Star Zone. If Chu Fengmian wanted to kill Lan Ming alone, he would have a slim chance of survival. But this time, Chu Fengmian could find a helper. The Mad Dragon Emperor was a true celestial realm expert. As long as he could lure Lan Ming out of the Sea Sacrifice sect, Chu Fengmian could act. With Chu Fengmian's strength and the help of the Mad Dragon Emperor, Chu Fengmian was confident that he could kill Lan Ming. Soon, the jade talisman in Chu Fengmian's hand lit up again. The Mad Dragon Emperor had agreed to come to the Songhai Star Zone. With Mad Dragon Emperor's strength, he could come to the Songhai Star Zone within 3 days. During this time, The Mad Dragon Emperor had been cultivating in the Blue Dragon sect to stabilize his realm and familiarize himself with the power of the celestial realm. Once he was familiar with the power of the celestial realm, his strength could improve further. When the Mad Dragon Emperor arrived, it would be time for Chu Fengmian to find a chance to act. This cave residence is quite hidden. Without Lan Ming's knowledge, I can comprehend the Sword Dao Totem. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He just took out the Sword Dao Totem he got from the Sea Sword sect to comprehend it. But at this moment, the jade talisman on Chu Fengmian's chest suddenly lit up. Wu Ju's voice came from the jade talisman, asking Chu Fengmian to gather at a place on the sacrificial island. He said there was a mission. Let's go take a look first. Chu Fengmian didn't expect to have a mission so soon. He originally wanted to comprehend the Sword Dao Totem first and comprehend the various sword arts in it, then integrate them into the ancient Sword Dao book to increase Chu Fengmian increase his strength. This way, he would have more confidence in dealing with Lan Ming. But now that Chu Fengmian had infiltrated the sacrificial island, he couldn't reveal any flaws. He put away the Sword Dao Totem and flew out of the palace. Following Wu Ju's instructions, Chu Fengmian transformed into a beam of light and arrived at a plaza at the center of the island. There were already quite a number of martial artists and demon immortals in the square, numbering in the hundreds. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that they were all disciples of the sacrificial pavilion, as well as many deacons and protectors. Seeing so many people, Chu Fengmian was relieved. It seemed that it wasn't because Chu Fengmian's identity had been exposed, but because the sacrificial pavilion really had a mission. Chu Fengmian's escape light landed on the square. With his status as a protector of the sacrificial pavilion, some disciples took the initiative to make way for him to stand there. Who is that? When did our sacrificial pavilion have a new protector? Supposedly, he's the strongest figure in this year's disciple recruitment ceremony, and he was directly taken into our sacrificial pavilion to assume the position of protector. That's him? It's said that he killed Song Lang in one move. Killed Song Lang in one move? Such a powerful figure? He looks mediocre to me. How could he be so capable? That's how the news spread. I don't know the details. Some disciples of the sacrificial pavilion found Chu Fengmian's appearance extremely unfamiliar and began to discuss spiritedly. However, some news had already spread and allowed them to recognize Chu Fengmian's identity. Song Lang was an incomparably dazzling existence among the seed disciples of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect. He could be promoted to a core disciple at any time, but he was killed by Chu Fengmian in one move. This made Chu Fengmian somewhat famous. However, almost all of the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion were geniuses of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect. They looked at Chu Fengmian with disdain. Many were even eager to challenge Chu Fengmian and see if his fame was real or fake. Chu Fengmian sensed their different gazes, but he didn't bother to pay attention to them. He stood there motionless like a wooden puppet, ignoring all provocations. "Everyone is here," said a cold voice. An arrogant figure descended. It was none other than Wu Ju. "Greetings, Protector Wu Ju." The surrounding disciples of the sacrificial pavilion saluted Wu Ju to show their respect when they saw him. Protectors were only second to the elders in the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect. However, there was a huge difference in status between protectors. For example, although Chu Fengmian was also a protector of the sacrificial pavilion, these disciples didn't care about him at all, because Chu Fengmian didn't display any strength at all. In their opinion, such a protector wasn't even comparable to some seed disciples. Wu Ju was one of the strongest protectors of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect. His strength was well known by everyone. Naturally, they were incomparably respectful towards the strong. "This time, I'm under the order of Lord Lan Ming to lead you to the Broken Islands to find a person. Whoever can find this person will be rewarded by Lord Lan Ming and may even be accepted as a disciple by Lord Lan Ming." Wu Ju glanced at the crowd and said, "Find a person." "So many of us are just going to find a person. We can even be rewarded by Lord Lan Ming and be accepted as a disciple? That's a huge benefit. Who exactly are they looking for?" Some of the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion were shocked when they heard Wu Ju's words. They thought that the gathering of so many disciples, deacons, and protectors meant that they were going to do something big. However, they didn't expect that they were just looking for a person. Only Chu Fengmian's expression changed slightly when he heard the words, "Broken Islands." When he parted ways with the Princess of the Sea, she had given Chu Fengmian a jade talisman. Through the jade talisman, Chu Fengmian could find out where the Princess of the Sea was. Chu Fengmian had checked once before and found out that the Princess of the Sea was in the Broken Islands. Then he thought about how the sacrificial pavilion had gathered so many disciples to go to the Shattered Isles to find a single person. This time, the person they were looking for was probably the Princess of the Sea. If Lan Ming really found out about the Princess of the Sea, it would be troublesome. Chu Fengmian was shocked, but he quickly regained his composure and listened quietly to Wu Ju's words. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1954. Quiet. Wu Ju frowned and shouted coldly as he looked at the chaos below. The discussion stopped abruptly and quieted down. This is a spirit artifact personally refined by Lord Lan Ming. It can detect the identity of the person you're looking for. As long as it's within a radius of 10 miles, you can sense it. If you find this person, you can directly inform Lord Lan Ming through the spirit artifact. Wu Ju held a compass-like spiritual weapon in his hand and said, "There were hundreds of spiritual weapons, and every disciple of the sacrificial pavilion had one." Chu Fengmian tested the compass and found that it was a kind of spiritual tool that could detect bloodlines. With this compass, it could detect anyone with the bloodline of the black whale within a radius of 10 miles. Seeing the compass, Chu Fengmian was sure that Lan Ming had sent so many disciples to the Broken Islands to capture the Princess of the Sea. I can use this opportunity to lure Lan Ming out of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Chu Fengmian suddenly thought of a plan. He originally wanted to lure Lan Ming out of the Sea Sacrifice sect so that he could have a chance to kill Lan Ming. If Lan Ming had been hiding in the Sea Sacrifice sect, even Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor wouldn't have been able to kill Lan Ming in the Sea Sacrifice sect. After all, there was more than one Sky Realm expert in the Sea Sacrifice sect. Chu Fengmian was still thinking about how to lure Lan Ming out. This was the perfect opportunity. However, the Mad Dragon Emperor hadn't arrived in the Songhai Star Zone yet. Chu Fengmian still had to wait for a while. When the Mad Dragon Emperor arrived, Chu Fengmian could carry out his plan. "All right, everyone, let's go to the Broken Star Zone." Wu Ju handed out all the compasses. Then, he turned into a beam of light and flew toward a certain direction in the Sea Sacrifice sect. All the disciples, deacons, and protectors of the sacrificial pavilion followed Wu Ju and flew to an island in the Sea Sacrifice sect. There were countless palaces on the island. Each palace had a teleportation formation that led to various places in the Songhai Star Zone. As the largest force in the Songhai Star Zone, the Sea Sacrifice sect had teleportation formations in every city in the Songhai Star Zone. The disciples of the Sea Sacrifice sect could use these teleportation formations to go to various cities in the Songhai Star Zone at any time. It was very convenient. Wu Ju led the group to the Broken Islands through the teleportation formation. The Broken Islands was one of the few places in the Songhai Star Zone that had land, and there were tens of thousands of small islands. It was said that the Broken Archipelago was once a continent in the vast Sea Star region. Later, the aftermath of the battle between two celestial realm powerhouses shook the heavens and the earth. In the end, it was shattered into tens of thousands of small islands. Was the Songhai Star Zone? Even in the Songhai Starfield, which was mostly an ocean, islands like this were rare. Therefore, many races in the Songhai starfield cultivated on the Broken Island. The countless foreign races also caused the Shattered Islands to become extremely chaotic, with crooks mixed in with honest folk. Wu Ju led all the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion to the sky above the Shattered Islands. All the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion spread out and transformed into streaks of light as they began to search for the Princess of the Sea. You come with me. Chu Fengmian was about to leave but was stopped by Wu Ju. Wu Ju seemed to be worried about Chu Fengmian. He wanted Chu Fengmian to follow him. Yes, Chu Fengmian said calmly. It was as if he had really become a slave of the sacrificial pavilion. He followed Wu Ju. Wu Ju led Chu Fengmian to the center of the Broken Islands. They did not search the islands one by one. There was a huge storm in the center of the Broken Islands. It was said that there was a huge eye of the sea in the center of the storm. It attracted the power of heaven and earth and turned into a storm. It was said that the eye of the sea was the shock waves of the battle between two sky realm experts. It contained boundless power. Wu Ju led Chu Fengmian into the storm. Wu Ju seems to want to use me for something? Chu Fengmian thought as he followed Wu Ju. However, he did not resist. There were tens of thousands of islands in the Broken Island. Even the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion would not be able to find the Princess of the Sea easily. Chu Fengmian followed Wu Ju. He wanted to see what Wu Ju was up to. The two of them closed in on the storm. This storm was 1,000 miles in diameter. As they got closer, they could feel the fierce winds within it. The power of these hurricanes was enough to be called wind blades. Ordinary ancient emperors would be slain by the wind blades the moment they entered the hurricane. Wu Ju stopped in front of the storm and pointed at Chu Fengmian. You go in front and block the wind blades. This doesn't seem to be Lord Lan Ming's order. Chu Fengmian frowned and looked at the wind blades. What? Are you going to go against my orders? Wu Ju glanced at Chu Fengmian with cold eyes and a sinister smile. Let me tell you. If I tell Lord Lan Ming that you are disloyal, you will die. How dare you go against my orders? Be obedient and I can let you live for a few more days. If you don't, you will die now. You. Chu Fengmian's face was pale. He seemed to be hesitating. Finally, he obeyed Wu Ju. I am willing to be obedient. You can't kill me. Don't worry. I won't kill you as long as you are obedient. Wu Ju smiled when he saw Chu Fengmian's tactfulness. Go in. Chu Fengmian hesitated for a while. He took the lead and entered the storm. His spiritual energy turned into a shield to block the wind blades. Even for the ancient emperor, these wind blades were hard to defend against. Chu Fengmian opened up his barrier and was hit by dozens of wind blades in an instant. Don't stop. Go deeper. Wu Ju followed behind Chu Fengmian and urged him to move forward. Chu Fengmian could only listen to Wu Ju helplessly. He flew toward the center of the storm and helped Wu Ju block the wind blades along the way. Chu Fengmian's energy became weaker as he went deeper into the storm. Even Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations had to consume a large amount of spiritual energy to block the wind blade. Wu Ju wanted Chu Fengmian to walk in front so that Chu Fengmian could block the wind blades for him. Chu Fengmian's face became paler. It seemed that he had consumed too much spiritual energy. It was difficult for him to block the wind blade. Of course, this was all an illusion. Chu Fengmian had the holy pulse. He could recover the spiritual energy used to block the wind blades in an instant. End of chapter. Chapter 1955. However, since Chu Fengmian wanted to disguise himself, he had to be thorough. Soon, Chu Fengmian had no choice but to swallow elixirs to replenish his spiritual power. After an hour, Chu Fengmian's spiritual power had been depleted to the point where even the elixirs couldn't replenish it. He could no longer resist the attacks of the wind blade. Lord Wu Ju, I can't hold on any longer. Chu Fengmian struggled to resist a few more wind blades and said weakly. According to the distance, we're almost there. Wu Ju glanced at the front and then looked at Chu Fengmian and said calmly, "Not bad. You're quite obedient. In that case, follow me obediently." "Yes." Chu Fengmian felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He followed behind Wu Ju and slowly recovered his spiritual power. "This person is obedient. Let's not kill him first. We'll kill him when we reach the cave mansion." Wu Ju glanced at Chu Fengmian with a trace of killing intent in his eyes. Although it was just a flash, Chu Fengmian still noticed it. Chu Fengmian knew that Wu Ju brought him to the center of the storm to do a secret thing. After it was done, Wu Ju wouldn't let him go. However, Wu Ju only brought Chu Fengmian here because he thought that Chu Fengmian was under the control of Lan Ming's restriction. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't under the control of Lan Ming's restriction at all. Chu Fengmian was now casting a long line to catch a big fish. He wanted to see why Wu Ju came to the center of the storm. Chu Fengmian looked exhausted as he followed Wu Ju to the center of the storm. The two of them had already passed through the storm. Chu Fengmian felt that the surrounding wind blades had decreased a lot. The scene in the storm in front of him gradually became clear. Chu Fengmian glanced over and the scene in front of him was reflected in his eyes. Palaces, palaces after palaces. In the center of the storm there were palaces. Many of these palaces were damaged. It seemed like they were destroyed by the wind blades. However, there were still some intact palaces standing there. Many of the palaces even had complete formations set up on them. At a glance, the center of the storm looked like the ruins of a sect. "Come with me." Before Chu Fengmian could take a closer look, Wu Ju snorted coldly. Chu Fengmian hurriedly followed Wu Ju and landed in front of a palace. Chu Fengmian glanced at the palace and found that many of its restrictive formations had been unlocked. Moreover, they had been unlocked recently. It seemed that this palace was the purpose of Wu Ju's visit. "You go in first and check out the situation inside." Wu Ju looked at Chu Fengmian and pointed at the palace. "There won't be any danger, right?" Chu Fengmian said fearfully. "Just go. Don't waste your breath. If there's danger, I'll save you." Wu Ju snorted coldly. "Why? Do you want to have a taste of the restrictive formations being activated?" Hearing this, Chu Fengmian trembled. It seemed like he was extremely afraid of the restrictive formations being activated. He hurriedly walked into the palace. Seeing Chu Fengmian walk into the palace, Wu Ju sneered. Boom! As soon as Chu Fengmian stepped into the palace, the world suddenly began to spin. Countless flames began to burn and pounce on Chu Fengmian. "Wu Ju, you didn't keep your promise." Chu Fengmian shouted loudly when he saw the flames. "Promise? What promise? You're as stupid as a pig. Do you think you can leave here alive after I brought you here? This cave mansion is my opportunity. Do you think I'll let you live after I let you know?" Wu Ju's cold voice sounded from all directions. "I need a sacrifice to open this cave mansion. I don't know where to find it, but you've delivered yourself to me. Today, you'll be the sacrifice to open this cave mansion," Wu Ju said while chanting an ancient language. Although Chu Fengmian couldn't understand it, he could tell that it was an ancient sacrificial language. The Sea Sacrificial sect was famous for its sacrificial path. The blood sacrifice of living people was one of the most powerful sacrificial techniques. The more powerful the martial artist or demon god was, the greater the power of the blood sacrifice would be. Wu Ju had tricked Chu Fengmian into this palace in order to sacrifice Chu Fengmian. Then, he would use Chu Fengmian's power to break the restrictions of this palace. The flames around Chu Fengmian turned into golden sacrificial flames, as if they were going to burn Chu Fengmian to ashes. However, at this moment, a dragon's roar was heard. Spiritual energy trembled, and the surrounding sacrificial flames were extinguished. A figure suddenly flew out of the palace and grabbed Wu Ju, who was still trying to sacrifice. It was Chu Fengmian. "You? What's going on? How could you possibly escape from my blood sacrifice technique?" Wu Ju turned pale with fright when he saw Chu Fengmian break the sacrificial flames and rush out. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, he deliberately wasted Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy and let him block the wind blades so that he could sacrifice Chu Fengmian. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to destroy his sacrificial ritual in the blink of an eye. Chu Fengmian's aura was completely different from before. The strength Chu Fengmian showed in the Sea Sacrificial Sect wasn't even 1% of Wu Ju's strength. Now that his true strength had erupted, Wu Ju suddenly felt that Chu Fengmian wasn't an ant to be trampled on, but a real dragon. Do you really think I'm a pushover? I'm just acting. I originally came to the Sea Sacrificial Sect to deal with Lan Ming. I didn't want to kill anyone else. Unfortunately, you brought about your own destruction. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly with killing intent in his eyes. The only person Chu Fengmian wanted to kill was Lan Ming. Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to kill the other disciples of the Sea Sacrificial Sect. Unfortunately, Wu Ju had been targeting Chu Fengmian since he entered the Sea Sacrificial Sect. Now that he wanted to sacrifice Chu Fengmian couldn't be blamed for killing him. You turned out to be a spy. How audacious! You actually want to kill Lord Lan Ming? Wu Ju shouted when he heard Chu Fengmian's arrogant words. Don't forget that you have Lord Lan Ming's restriction on you. If you dare to resist, I'll activate the restriction and you'll die in an instant. Do you think you can still resist Lord Lan Ming's restriction? End of chapter. Chapter 1956. Restriction? How can such a small restriction do anything to me? Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. A cold smile appeared on his face as he looked at Wu Ju. Don't you like blood sacrifices? Well, I also want to see what's in this palace. I'll use your flesh as a sacrifice. As Chu Fengmian spoke, he grabbed the nobleman in the palm of his hand and used his spiritual power to suppress the nobleman. The nobleman didn't even have the slightest ability to resist before he was thrown into the palace. At the same time, Chu Fengmian was chanting an ancient sacrificial language. The Tao of sacrifice had a long history. In the most ancient times, humans hunted demonic beasts and other races to offer sacrifices in exchange for power. This kind of blood sacrifice was too barbaric and was very rare in this era. However, Chu Fengmian was familiar with ancient books and knew many ancient sacrificial techniques. Wu Ju intended to use Chu Fengmian as a blood sacrifice to open the palace. Today, Chu Fengmian would give him a taste of his own medicine and sacrifice Wu Ju. As Chu Fengmian chanted the sacrificial language, countless ancient characters appeared and fell around Wu Ju. They surrounded Wu Ju and extracted his power. His flesh and blood were burning little by little. Wu Ju screamed and tried to resist, but his power suddenly turned into a huge Eye of the Sea. The Eye of the Sea was the condensation of Wu Ju's power. It shook the surrounding characters violently, trying to escape from the palace. The power of the Eye of the Sea was so strong that even a half-step celestial being would have to retreat. It contained an enormous amount of power and swept away the sacrificial flames. Still want to resist? Chu Fengmian shouted and waved his hand. Suddenly, a dragon claw condensed in the air and slammed down on the Eye of the Sea. Bang! Wu Ju's Eye of the Sea, which was formed from his energy, was directly destroyed by the dragon claw. His energy was scattered, and he no longer had the ability to resist. As the sacrificial flames burned, the ocean eye formed by Wu Ju's body was incinerated. All that was left in the flames was an empty ring. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and the empty ring fell into his palm. Inside this empty ring, in addition to the things in Chu Fengmian's empty ring, there was also Wu Ju's accumulation. Wu Ju's spatial ring also contained 12 immortal stones, which were all taken away by Chu Fengmian. At the same time, the only thing left in the palace was Wu Ju's blood sacrifice. This was the power of sacrifice. Chu Fengmian tapped his palm and sent the mass of sacrificial power into the palace. Rumble! In the palace, the restrictive arrays were all shattered. Wu Ju's strength was more tyrannical than many half-step celestial realm martial artists and demon immortals. The blood sacrifice art was to unleash all the power he had accumulated throughout his life in an instant. The power that erupted was so great that even someone like Lan Ming would have to retreat. The moment it hit the palace, the few remaining restrictive arrays were all shattered. At this time, the power of Wu Ju's blood sacrifice technique was also exhausted. Many of the restrictive arrays above the palace had been set up by Celestial Realm experts. That was why they could withstand the attack of the wind blades in the storm. Chu Fengmian needed a long time to completely dissolve these restrictive arrays using the sky-devouring secret technique. Now, with the power of Wu Ju's blood sacrifice technique, the restrictive arrays of the palace were all shattered. The ancient door was also completely opened. Chu Fengmian stepped into the palace. There were no living creatures in the palace. There were only some skeletons lying on the ground. These skeletons didn't seem to have any injuries. However, when Chu Fengmian walked over, the ground trembled slightly. All the skeletons suddenly shattered and disappeared. These people were all killed by a tyrannical force. Chu Fengmian glanced at these skeletons. There were probably many half-step celestial realm martial artists and demon immortals among them. However, these people were all killed by a tyrannical existence with a single move. They didn't even have the ability to resist. They were all killed. Moreover, the person who killed them had completely ignored the restrictive arrays above the palace. Chu Fengmian couldn't imagine how tyrannical the person was. This was definitely a celestial realm expert. It might even be a profound heaven realm expert who had surpassed the celestial realm. Thinking of the Broken Islands, which was once a continent that was destroyed by a battle between two super experts, Chu Fengmian was afraid that this person was the one who destroyed the Broken Islands. However, the record of the destruction of the Broken Islands was something that happened millions of years ago in the Songhai star field. Many things from that era had not been passed down. What was passed down was just a few words. No one could fully understand what had happened. Chu Fengmian glanced around the palace. In addition to these skeletons, there were dozens of large and small pill furnaces in the palace. Without exception, these pill furnaces were all half-immortal tools of high quality. It was because of their high quality that these pill furnaces were not destroyed. Only a few of them seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the bombardment and were shattered. The rest of them were still intact. Chu Fengmian could still feel the spiritual power on them. Although it seemed that after millions of years, 99% of the spiritual power had been consumed, these pill furnaces only lost their owners. As long as there was a new owner to inject spiritual power into them, they could still display their previous power. This should be a pill concoction palace. These people are all disciples who were concocting pills in this pill concoction palace. However, they were all killed here. Chu Fengmian looked at the palace and sighed. These people probably didn't even know how they died. They were all killed without a sound. Half-step celestial realm martial artists and demon immortals, no matter which star region they were in, were considered experts and overlords. But now, these people in the palace didn't even know how they died, which made people sigh. Chu Fengmian looked at the palace for a while and walked towards the nearest intact pill furnace. About 1/3 of these pill furnaces were broken. There were a dozen pill furnaces that were intact and still had spiritual power. It seemed that they were not affected. Chu Fengmian beat them at their own game. He followed Wu Ju here and found such a palace by chance. He also wanted to see the harvest of this trip. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1957. This was a palace that was in charge of refining pills. The best treasures were these elixir furnaces. These elixir furnaces were all half-immortal tools. They could be sold at sky-high prices. However, what Chu Fengmian cared about were these elixir furnaces. Wealth was just a number to him. Chu Fengmian had divine veins and could refine divine-grade spiritual stones. Now, as long as Chu Fengmian was willing, he could refine a large number of divine-grade spiritual stones in exchange for wealth. Although these elixir furnaces were priceless, they were nothing to Chu Fengmian. He walked towards one of the elixir furnaces with a face full of expectation. What Chu Fengmian was looking forward to the most was the things in the elixir furnaces. These elixir furnaces were not only used to refine elixirs, but also to store elixirs and prevent the medicinal efficacy from leaking out. Many of the ancient sacred elixirs that were discovered today were actually found in such elixir furnaces. These elixir furnaces were all half-immortal tools. The skeletons on the ground were all half-step celestial realm martial artists and demon gods. Judging from these 2 points, the elixirs refined in these elixir furnaces were absolutely extraordinary. They could even be ancient sacred elixirs. If these elixir furnaces were all filled with ancient sacred elixirs, Chu Fengmian would be rich. However, Chu Fengmian also knew that such a good thing was better to just think about it. Even in the ruins of an ancient sect, not many ancient sacred elixirs could be found. Moreover, these elixir furnaces had been around for millions of years. Even if there were elixirs in them, it was unknown how much medicinal efficacy the elixirs had left. Chu Fengmian walked to one of the elixir furnaces and injected a stream of spiritual energy into it. The elixir furnace was immediately under Chu Fengmian's control. The owners of these elixir furnaces had already passed away, so naturally, they would not resist. Chu Fengmian quickly took control of the elixir furnace. With a wave of his hand, the elixir furnace opened. A medicinal fragrance suddenly filled the air. The moment Chu Fengmian smelled the medicinal fragrance, his face was filled with joy. There were indeed elixirs in the elixir furnace. Moreover, judging from the medicinal fragrance, there were at least medieval sacred elixirs inside. It could even be ancient sacred elixirs. Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy enveloped the cauldron, sealing it so that the medicinal power of the pills wouldn't leak out. Then, Chu Fengmian looked down. The pills in this pill furnace were all white pills about the size of longans. Complex pill patterns were carved into them, and the medicinal power within them was extremely mild. It was as if any ordinary person could consume them. This is a human Dao pill? Chu Fengmian took a glance at it before he recognized the origin of the pills. The human Dao pill was a sacred pill of the Middle Ages. It was a pill that could raise one's potential. Its medicinal effects were extremely mild. Even ordinary people who had never cultivated before could consume it. These human Dao pills were said to be pills used by many sects in ancient times to nurture their disciples. Through the nurturing of these human Dao pills, even an ordinary disciple could become a genius. This kind of human Dao pill was very similar to the Xian Dao Divine Vein pill that Chu Fengmian had once obtained. They were both pills used to raise one's aptitude. However, the Xian Dao Divine Vein pill was a sacred pill of the primordial era. Its medicinal strength surpassed even the human Dao pill by a level. Of course, the difficulty of refining the Xian Dao Divine Vein pill was also incomparably high. Even in ancient times, many large sects didn't have the ability to refine them in large quantities. The Ocean's Word sect's Xian Dao Divine Vein pill was also a batch of Xian Dao Divine Vein pills that they had discovered in an ancient ruin. Otherwise, the Ocean's Word sect might not even have the qualifications to refine them with their current strength. Although the medicinal strength of these human Dao pills wasn't as good as the Xian Dao Divine Vein pill, they were much easier to refine than the Xian Dao Divine Vein pill. Chu Fengmian looked over and saw that there were 50 to 60 human Dao pills in the cauldron. This number was extremely shocking. These human Dao pills were useless to Chu Fengmian now, but when he returned to the Sword Dao sect, he could use them to create many genius disciples. There were a total of 57 human Dao pills in the cauldron. Chu Fengmian collected all of them into his spatial ring. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also collected the cauldron. This cauldron was a half-immortal tool. Chu Fengmian didn't plan to sell it. Instead, he collected it and gave it to the divine tree. The divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body had already devoured many supreme treasures. In the past, Chu Fengmian had obtained the sword cauldron, the archaic bronze gate, the gate of Dharma and Logos, the heavenly nine-dragon cauldron, and other supreme treasures. This divine tree was once a part of the Jianmu. It was also a young Xiantian divine beast. It was also connected to Chu Fengmian's flesh and blood. Chu Fengmian had been nurturing it since he had the ability. However, the divine tree's power was getting stronger and stronger. Ordinary spiritual tools couldn't increase the divine tree's power even if it devoured them. Even in the Songhai star field, it wasn't easy to obtain a half-immortal tool. Therefore, the divine tree's power had stopped increasing recently. This time, there were so many cauldrons, all of which were half-immortal tools. It was just enough to feed the divine tree. When the divine tree saw the cauldron, it happily began to devour it. As a half-immortal tool, the cauldron couldn't resist the divine tree at all. It was instantly devoured by the divine tree. In an instant, Chu Fengmian felt the power in his body increase by a few points. The divine tree was connected to Chu Fengmian's flesh and blood. The stronger the divine tree was, the stronger Chu Fengmian's power would be. This cauldron didn't increase Chu Fengmian's power by much. However, there were more than a dozen of such cauldrons in the palace. The divine tree's power would increase greatly after devouring more than a dozen half-immortal tool cauldrons. Chu Fengmian threw some of the spiritual tools he had obtained on his way to the Songhai star field into the divine tree for it to devour. On the other side, Chu Fengmian walked towards another cauldron and opened it. This cauldron was empty. It seemed that there were no pills stored in this cauldron. The pills stored in the cauldron could only be stored for a short period of time. In the long term, the pills would definitely be moved to other places. Chu Fengmian threw this cauldron into the divine tree and walked towards the next cauldron. There were some gains in the next cauldron. However, the pills inside were still human Tao pills. Compared to the first cauldron that Chu Fengmian opened, there were more than 100 human Tao pills. Chu Fengmian was delighted to see so many human Tao pills. However, he was also worried. Could it be that all the cauldrons in this palace were used to refine human Tao pills? If that was the case, then Chu Fengmian's gains would be limited. Human Tao pills were indeed good. However, they couldn't increase Chu Fengmian's power. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest house. Chapter 1958. To Chu Fengmian, increasing his own strength was of utmost importance. The Sword Dao sect was able to establish itself in the 9 domains because of Chu Fengmian's protection. Without Chu Fengmian, the Sword Dao sect would have been destroyed a long time ago. Chu Fengmian still hoped to obtain some pills that could increase his strength or even help him break through. That was the best opportunity for Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian opened a few more pill furnaces. The pills inside were all human Tao pills. This made Chu Fengmian feel a little disappointed. Chu Fengmian had already collected a total of 17 cauldrons in the palace, except for 3 cauldrons that didn't contain any pills. The remaining 14 pill furnaces all contained human Tao pills. Although the quantity was different, there were still more than 1,000 pills in total. Human Tao pills were sacred pills of the Middle Ages. 1,000 human Tao pills were enough to create 1,000 genius disciples. Even the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, the number 1 sect in the Songhai Star Zone, didn't have so many human Tao pills. These 17 pill furnaces were all thrown into the divine tree by Chu Fengmian without exception. They were devoured and refined by the divine tree. The 17 pill furnaces were all half-immortal weapons. Although the materials used to refine these pill furnaces weren't as good as other spiritual weapons, there were a lot of them. After the divine tree devoured all 17 pill furnaces, the divine tree grew a lot taller and its branches and leaves became a lot more lush. The numerous roots that took root in Chu Fengmian's body also became thicker. Although Chu Fengmian's cultivation level didn't increase, his strength and physical body had undergone significant changes. In terms of strength, he had increased by a full 30%. This time's harvest was a lot, but Chu Fengmian still didn't believe that there were only human Dao pills in this palace. His gaze landed on the last cauldron. Chu Fengmian had discovered the last alchemy furnace the moment he entered the palace. However, he had never opened it. He had kept it for the last time. The structure of this pill furnace was different from the others. Even though it had been there for an unknown amount of time, it still shone with a kind of luster as if it were brand new. The quality of this pill furnace far surpassed that of the other 17 pill furnaces. This pill furnace was also located in the center of the palace, surrounded by the other pill furnaces like stars surrounding the moon. The other pill furnaces were all used to refine human Dao pills. However, this one was probably different. Open! Chu Fengmian walked in front of the alchemy furnace and glanced at it. A wave of spiritual energy condensed in the palm of his hand, and he immediately struck the alchemy furnace to open it. However, countless restrictions and formations suddenly appeared above the pill furnace, resisting Chu Fengmian's strength and preventing him from opening it. This palace had been damaged for millions of years. At the very least, this cauldron had lost its owner after millions of years. Logically speaking, the power of this pill furnace should have been obliterated long ago. When Chu Fengmian had opened the other pill furnaces in this palace, he had been able to open them all with ease. But this time, Chu Fengmian was thwarted in the face of this pill furnace. Even with his strength, he couldn't forcibly open this pill furnace. The restrictions and formations on it were definitely set up by a celestial, or even an absolute powerhouse in the celestial realm. After millions of years, much of its power had been depleted, but it was still enough to resist Chu Fengmian. I don't believe that an inanimate object can still have much power after millions of years. Sky-devouring secret technique. Devour! Chu Fengmian shouted coldly and pushed the power of the sky-devouring origin to the maximum. Immediately, the sky-devouring secret technique entered the pill furnace and madly devoured the power of the restrictions and formations. The restrictions and formations were extremely powerful. Chu Fengmian wanted to open them from the outside, but it was impossible. Therefore, Chu Fengmian devoured the restrictions and formations from the inside. Boom! As soon as the sky-devouring secret technique entered the pill furnace, it immediately operated madly and devoured the power of the restrictions and formations. The pill furnace was shaking madly, as if it was trying to resist the power of the sky-devouring secret technique. However, such a pill furnace was, after all, an inanimate object. After millions of years of silence, its power had been reduced to less than 1/10 of its original. Although it could resist some external forces, it had little ability to resist the sky-devouring secret technique. Boom! As the sky-devouring secret technique continued to operate and devour, the restrictions and formations on the pill furnace began to tremble and show signs of breaking at any time. Chu Fengmian could also see that the restrictions and formations on the pill furnace had also experienced millions of years, and the power inside had been obliterated. Crack! Under the continuous devouring of the sky-devouring secret technique, a crack suddenly appeared on the restrictions and formations covering the pill furnace. From the crack, an extremely pure medicinal fragrance suddenly spread out. The moment Chu Fengmian smelled the medicinal fragrance, he felt his body become incomparably comfortable. Just the medicinal fragrance contained in the pill furnace seemed to have some effect on Chu Fengmian. If this medicinal fragrance was stored and sold, it would be a priceless treasure for many Emperor Realm Masters and even half-step Celestial Realm Masters. Just the medicinal aroma alone had such an effect. Just how shocking was the medicinal pill inside? Ancient. The pills inside are definitely ancient saint pills. Chu Fengmian's eyes were burning. Only ancient saint pills could have such a medicinal fragrance. This also proved that the pills in the pill furnace were indeed not human path pills, but other pills. If an ancient saint pill was an ancient saint pill that could be used to improve one's realm, Chu Fengmian could directly choose to break through to the half-step celestial realm with the immortal stones he had accumulated and the flying immortal pills he refined. Thinking of this, Chu Fengmian did not hesitate to increase the power of the sky-devouring secret technique and create a gap. The restrictions and formations on the pill furnace began to break and crumble. Chu Fengmian reached out and opened the pill box in the deepest part of the furnace. Inside was a yellow pill the size of a longan fruit. It had ancient pill markings on it, and was reflected in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1959. Even Chu Fengmian had never seen the runes on the pill before. They seemed to be some kind of language, but Chu Fengmian didn't know any of them. However, a familiar feeling appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind the moment he saw these words. Chu Fengmian couldn't figure out where this familiar feeling came from, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Chu Fengmian's gaze fell on the pill once more. When Chu Fengmian had opened a crack in the restriction formation earlier, he had thought that there would be at least one batch of pills inside the cauldron due to the pure medicinal fragrance. But now there was only one. What kind of pill is this? How could an ancient sacred elixir have such pure medicinal power? This medicinal strength is much stronger than that profound Tao divine vein Dan, and its medicinal strength is 5 to 6 times stronger. Chu Fengmian stared at the pill in astonishment. The profound divine vein pill was an ancient sacred pill. Although it wasn't of a high grade among the ancient sacred pills, it was indeed an ancient sacred pill. However, the medicinal power contained within the pill before him was 5 to 6 times stronger than the profound divine vein pill. How could Chu Fengmian not be shocked? An elixir of this level was probably one of the top elixirs among the primordial sacred elixirs. However, Chu Fengmian was unable to determine what kind of medicinal pill it was. Even with his knowledge, he had never heard of such a medicinal pill. The Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony. Chu Fengmian frantically flipped through the Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony in his mind, searching for this pill. The Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony was the most comprehensive book in the world that recorded all kinds of pills. Although Chu Fengmian had only obtained a part of it, the number of pills recorded far exceeded his experience. Chu Fengmian spent more than 10 minutes flipping through the Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony before he finally found the origin of this pill. Primal Shaman Divine Pill? The origin of this pill isn't even recorded in the Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony? Chu Fengmian found the name of this pill in the Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony. However, the following introduction caused Chu Fengmian to frown. The Alchemy Kingdom's Grand Ceremony didn't record the origin of this pill. Whether it was the refinement method or the materials, there was no mention of who had refined it before. It was as if this pill was even more ancient than the Alchemy Kingdom of the past. The kingdom had only heard of it and had never actually seen it before. However, he did mention the efficacy of the Primal Sorcerer God Pill. The Primal Sorcerer God Pill was an ancient sacred pill that was used to refine one's body. Seeing this, Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up. An ancient sacred pill of the body refinement Tao. Although to Chu Fengmian, it wasn't as good as the kind of medicinal pills that could help Chu Fengmian break through to the next realm, it was still very useful to him. Chu Fengmian had condensed his undying true body, and now, he needed a saint pill of the body refining path to unleash the power of his body. Swallow! Chu Fengmian grabbed the Primal Sorcerer Divine Pill from the cauldron and swallowed it. In Chu Fengmian's body, he activated the sky-devouring secret technique and began to refine the medicinal efficacy of the Chaos Sorcerer God Pill. Bang! After being refined by the sky-devouring secret technique, The primal sorcerer god pill immediately exploded in Chu Fengmian's body, turning into countless pure medicinal efficacy that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. In an instant, Chu Fengmian felt that every corner of his body was filled with the medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill. The medicinal efficacy was so strong that it almost pushed Chu Fengmian apart. The violent power instantly caused countless cracks to appear on Chu Fengmian's body, and it directly shattered. The 129,600 immortal crystals exploded. Each immortal crystal was filled with the power of the primal sorcerer god pill. Chu Fengmian didn't expect the power of the primal sorcerer god pill to be so overbearing. The overbearing power contained in the primal sorcerer god pill was simply unbearable for a half-step celestial being expert or even a true celestial being expert. If a celestial being expert swallowed the primal sorcerer god pill, he would most likely be stuffed to death, and his body would explode. To those who couldn't bear the medicinal efficacy, the primal sorcerer god pill was simply a kind of poison. It wasn't a divine pill at all, but a kind of poison pill. Even Chu Fengmian, who had condensed the immortal real body with the help of the divine tree and obtained countless opportunities to refine his body, couldn't bear the power of the primal sorcerer god pill. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body shattered and exploded. However, in the next moment, Chu Fengmian's power was also pushed to the extreme. His body was once again reconstructed and condensed, continuing to resist the medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill. The 129,600 immortal crystals instantly reconstructed and restored his body. The violent medicinal efficacy contained in the primal sorcerer god pill tore Chu Fengmian's body again and again. After being torn apart, Chu Fengmian also reconstructed his body again and again. Even though the medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill tore Chu Fengmian's body apart, Chu Fengmian still reconstructed his body again and again. However, in the process of reconstruction, the medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill was gradually absorbed by the 129,600 immortal crystals in Chu Fengmian's body. The 129,600 immortal crystals became more and more full after devouring a large amount of medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill. In just a few breaths' time, Chu Fengmian once again reconstructed his body. The strength of his current body had more than doubled compared to before. This made Chu Fengmian extremely happy. The medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill was much more powerful than the divine elephant dark strength pill. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. The effect of the primal sorcerer god pill was at least equivalent to a dozen divine elephant dark strength pills. Such a primal sorcerer god pill was enough to make Chu Fengmian's immortal real body undergo earth-shaking changes. However, such benefits weren't available to just anyone. Chu Fengmian had already condensed the immortal real body. His immortal real body was supported by the divine tree, refined the divine elephant dark strength pill, obtained the six-winged centipede, hidden gold essence and other opportunities. His immortal real body was extremely tough, but it almost couldn't withstand the power of the primal sorcerer god pill. To those who hadn't condensed the immortal real body, the primal sorcerer god pill was a type of deadly poison that couldn't be refined at all. A large amount of medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill poured in and was devoured by the 129,600 immortal crystals. The 129,600 immortal crystals also underwent a transformation after devouring a large amount of medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill. End of chapter. Chapter 1960. This transformation was not only an accumulation of power, but also a qualitative change. Chu Fengmian also noticed that the immortal true body was not just a level or a realm. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body should only be at the first level. The opportunities Chu Fengmian had obtained before were all for the sake of accumulating power for his undying body. But this time, he was refining the Wizard God Pill. The overbearing efficacy of the Wizard God Pill seemed to be pushing the immortal true body to a higher level. The 129,600 immortal crystals were all changing. Chu Fengmian looked over and saw a few of the immortal crystals had actually begun to appear with ancient characters. The characters were so ancient that even Chu Fengmian could not recognize them. However, Chu Fengmian instantly realized that the words that appeared on the immortal crystal were extremely similar to the words on the primal wizard divine pellet. They seemed to be from the same language. What's going on? Could it be that swallowing this primal sorcerer god pill caused some changes to my immortal true body? Seeing the characters on the immortal crystals, Chu Fengmian panicked. He was afraid that his immortal true body was affected by the wizard god pill and changed. It would be fine if the changes were beneficial, but it would not be worth it if it affected Chu Fengmian's immortal true body. However, it was impossible for Chu Fengmian to stop at this moment. When the immortal crystals reached their peak after absorbing the primal sorcerer god pill's medicinal efficacy, they began to show the same changes, revealing the same unique characters. Of the 129,600 immortal crystals, half of them had already undergone such a transformation. It was impossible for Chu Fengmian to stop now, so he could only take one step at a time. But after observing for a while, Chu Fengmian relaxed. The characters on the immortal crystals were very similar to the ones on the wizard god pill, but they did not seem to be affected by external forces. They were naturally engraved on the immortal crystals. Is the wizard god pill a panacea to improve the immortal true body? Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. The effect of the primal sorcerer god pill on the undying true body was far beyond Chu Fengmian's estimation. It was as if the pill was tailor-made for the undying true body. After all, the efficacy of the primal sorcerer divinity pill was too overbearing. Martial artists and demon immortals without immortal true bodies could not possibly withstand the efficacy of the primal sorcerer divinity pill. If the primordial sorcerer god pill was created to enhance one's immortal true body, then its overbearing medicinal efficacy made sense. After all, even if his immortal true body exploded, he could reconstruct his body again and again to withstand the medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill. The medicinal efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill had also reached its end. On the 129,600 immortal crystals, there were ancient words carved on them. When the 129,600 immortal crystals were engraved with these ancient characters, Chu Fengmian sensed that these immortal crystals seemed to have become array cores. The 129,600 immortal crystals were the 129,600 immortal crystals. Under the sudden activation, the strength of Chu Fengmian's body was rising steadily. Suddenly, all the immortal crystals gathered together and formed the shape of a little person. This little person was in Chu Fengmian's body. If one observed carefully, they would see that this little person looked exactly the same as Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian sensed that his immortal true body seemed to have undergone a metamorphosis and an upgrade to a higher level. Every metamorphosis was enough to upgrade his immortal true body to a higher level and contain more power. However, this time, the efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill was completely devoured. The upgrade of his immortal true body also stopped. No matter how strong the efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill was, it could only upgrade the immortal true body once. After that, the efficacy of the primal sorcerer god pill would be exhausted. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body seemed to have reached the second level. Of course, this wasn't his limit. Chu Fengmian could sense that his deathless true body could evolve further, but without enough medicinal pills and opportunities, it would be impossible for him to do so. It's a pity that I won't be able to find a second primal sorcerer god pill. Chu Fengmian shook his head and sighed. One primal sorcerer god pill could bring so many benefits to his immortal true body. If he could get a few more, his power would soar again. Unfortunately, these pills weren't easy to come by. Chu Fengmian had found a primordial sorcerer god pill within the pill furnace. Even the Alchemy Kingdom's grand ceremony had very few records of this pill, so one could imagine its rarity. Being able to obtain this pill to help Chu Fengmian's immortal true body evolve once was already a great fortune. There's nothing else worth exploring in this palace. In the palace, Chu Fengmian fed the last cauldron to the divine tree, which then devoured and refined it. Chu Fengmian's figure stepped out of the palace and flew towards the edge of the storm. Let's see what level my physical body has reached. Chu Fengmian took a step forward. Immediately, countless wind blades bombarded him from all directions. Chu Fengmian didn't use any spirit energy to block these wind blades. Instead, he used his physical body to block them. The wind blades collided with Chu Fengmian's body, but they couldn't break his body at all. They could only leave bloody scars. However, Chu Fengmian still frowned after seeing these scars. The benefits from the advancement of his physical body seemed to be much less than what Chu Fengmian had imagined. His fleshly body had only improved by 50% at most. This didn't seem like the effect of an immortal true body at all. No. Chu Fengmian shook his head. His body shattered and reformed as he rushed into the wind blades again. However, the result was exactly the same. These wind blades could only leave bloody scars on Chu Fengmian's body. There was no change from before. How is this possible? My undying body has risen to the next level, but it's only increased by 50%? Chu Fengmian frowned as he recalled the situation when his immortal true body first evolved. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1961. Every upgrade of the immortal true body was as difficult as the celestial tribulation for ordinary warriors and demon immortals. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body had undergone countless preparations and accumulations. Hidden gold essence, 6-winged centipede queen, divine elephant dark strength elixir, and countless other sacred body-refining elixirs had been integrated into the immortal true body to increase its power. Chu Fengmian had obtained a Chaos Sorcerer God elixir under such accumulation, and only then did he truly upgrade his immortal true body. He had paid such a high price and only got such a small benefit? Chu Fengmian couldn't accept it. What's going on? Even if my immortal true body didn't upgrade, the Chaos Sorcerer God elixir should have improved my immortal true body more than this. Chu Fengmian frowned and suddenly looked at the little man formed by 129,600 immortal crystals in his body. The biggest change for Chu Fengmian after the upgrade of his immortal true body was the little man formed by 129,600 immortal crystals. Is it because of him? Has the power of the Chaos Sorcerer God elixir been swallowed by this little man? Chu Fengmian thought while injecting a stream of spiritual power into the little man, secretly operating its power. Suddenly, the little man shattered with the influx of Chu Fengmian's power. The next moment, 129,600 immortal crystals suddenly wrapped around Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered when he saw this. He took a step forward and faced the wind blades again. But this time, the wind blades couldn't leave a single mark on Chu Fengmian's body when they bombarded him. These wind blades, which even half-step celestial realm warriors and demon immortals had to use their spiritual power to resist, couldn't hurt Chu Fengmian's body at all. It should be noted that Chu Fengmian didn't mobilize his spiritual power to resist at all. He could completely ignore the attack of the wind blades with his physical strength alone. If Chu Fengmian mobilized his spiritual power to resist, coupled with the strength of his physical body, he could resist the attack of a half-step celestial realm warrior or even a celestial realm warrior. The moment these 129,600 immortal crystals fused into Chu Fengmian's body, Chu Fengmian's fleshly body's toughness increased countless times. This is the effect of the transformation of the undying true body. Chu Fengmian was delighted. However, before Chu Fengmian could activate it again, he felt that his power was empty. This fusion only lasted for about 3 breaths of time. The 129,600 immortal crystals returned to Chu Fengmian's body and turned back into the miniature figure. Such a fusion seemed to consume a large amount of energy at every moment. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could only maintain it for 3 breaths of time. After 3 breaths of time, it would be gone. However, 3 breaths of time of fusion was already a great harvest for Chu Fengmian. When the immortal crystal humanoid with 129,600 immortal crystals fused into Chu Fengmian's body, Chu Fengmian felt that his body had been strengthened by 10 times. Even the attacks of those in the celestial realm were enough to withstand them. Although it was only for 3 breaths of time, if it was used at a critical moment, it could have an unexpected effect. Moreover, this was only the effect of the transformation of the undying true body. If the undying true body was further enhanced, or even further enhanced, the power of the undying true body would be even more terrifying. If Chu Fengmian could maintain this state at all times, he could contend against those in the celestial realm with just his physical body without using any spiritual power. It was no wonder that the undying true body was known as the toughest body in the world. After the completion of the undying true body, it was enough to contend against those in the celestial realm. Even if Chu Fengmian could only maintain it for about 3 breaths of time, it was enough to help Chu Fengmian resolve many dangers. I didn't expect to gain so much by following Wu Ju here. Chu Fengmian was delighted. He followed Wu Ju here just to see what Wu Ju was up to. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to discover such a palace. The 17 half-immortal pill furnaces in the palace were already a great opportunity. After being devoured by the divine tree, Chu Fengmian's strength increased by about 50%. In addition to the transformation of the undying true body. Although there was no change in Chu Fengmian's realm, his real strength had more than doubled compared to before. When facing those in the celestial realm, he was no longer powerless to resist. Moreover, in addition to the breakthrough of the undying true body, Chu Fengmian also obtained a large number of human Dao pills. There were a total of 1,000 human Dao pills, which was also a great opportunity. There are other opportunities in the center of the storm, but I can't rashly go in now. Chu Fengmian walked out of the palace and looked deeper into the storm. In the storm, there should be the remains of an ancient sect. Other than this palace, there should be other opportunities. However, when Chu Fengmian looked at the center of the storm, he felt uneasy. The center of the storm was full of danger. Chu Fengmian didn't have any understanding of the situation in the storm. If he rashly went in now, it would be extremely dangerous for him. Moreover, he didn't have time to waste in the palace. Although the broken islands were huge, with tens of thousands of islands, there were hundreds of disciples from the sacrificial pavilion who came to search for the Princess of the Sea. These hundreds of people would probably find the Princess of the Sea in a few days. Chu Fengmian had to find the Princess of the Sea before them. Let's go. Chu Fengmian's figure flickered and suddenly flew out of the storm. His escape light was extremely fast. Chu Fengmian didn't need to resist the wind blades at all. These wind blades bombarded Chu Fengmian's body, but they couldn't cause any damage to Chu Fengmian. After leaving the storm, his figure suddenly disappeared and flew towards an island in the Broken Archipelago. The island that Chu Fengmian was heading to was called Hula Island. It was an inconspicuous island in the Broken Islands. However, according to the Jade Talisman that the Princess of the Sea gave to Chu Fengmian, the Princess of the Sea was currently on Hula Island. End of chapter. Chapter 1962. Hula Island. Although it was only a small island among the Broken Islands, it had a population of 10 million and many cities had been built there. Chu Fengmian arrived at Hula Island and released the aura of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. At the same time, the power of the dragon whale bloodline was unleashed. The martial artists and demon gods who wanted to rob Chu Fengmian retreated when they sensed the aura of Chu Fengmian. The Broken Islands were extremely chaotic. If one was not strong enough, it was normal to be robbed in the Broken Islands. However, once Chu Fengmian released the aura of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, the martial artists and demon gods who wanted to rob Chu Fengmian all retreated. There were not many Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu in the Broken Islands. Any Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu was an overlord. Not many people dared to offend them. Even if these people were not afraid of Chu Fengmian's power, they still gave up on the thought when they saw Chu Fengmian's clothes. Chu Fengmian's clothes were the clothes of a protector of the Sea Sacrifice sect. The Sea Sacrifice sect was the most powerful force in the vast Sea Star Zone. Not many people dared to offend a disciple of the Sea Sacrifice sect, let alone a protector. Chu Fengmian swaggered into the city, and no one dared to stop him. Chu Fengmian looked towards the west of the city. The jade talisman that the Princess of the Sea gave to Chu Fengmian indicated her location. At this moment, a few streaks of light descended from the sky and landed in the direction that Chu Fengmian was looking at. Chu Fengmian recognized them with a single glance. They were the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion, and the person in the lead was a guardian of the sacrificial pavilion. These people had sensed the presence of the Princess of the Sea and went after her. Soon, 2 streaks of light flew out from the city lord's residence. These 2 streaks of light were the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. After not seeing Chu Fengmian for a while, the Princess of the Sea had reached the peak of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Her aura was many times stronger than when she had parted ways with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could tell at a glance that the black whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea was slowly awakening. The black whale bloodline was an innate divine beast bloodline. Once it was awakened, the Princess of the Sea's strength would increase tremendously. However, due to the awakening of the black whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea, her identity could no longer be concealed, and she was discovered by the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion. The disciples of the sacrificial pavilion also chased after them. There were 7 or 8 people in the group, and the leader of the group was a protector whose strength was not inferior to a half-step celestial being expert. The Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi could only flee in panic. There's no need to escape. Our sacrificial pavilion's people are everywhere on the Broken Islands. You'd better stop struggling. As the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion chased after him, they suddenly unleashed a burst of spiritual power, activating a large formation that enveloped Hula Island. This large array sealed the entire Hula Island. No one inside could leave the island. Of course, it was impossible to set up such a huge array in a short period of time. Apparently, the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion had been prepared and had set up the array. The Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi were trapped by the array, and they were soon surrounded by the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion. Miss Ling, hurry up and leave. I'll hold them back. Qi Yangshi's expression changed when he saw that the 2 of them were surrounded by the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion. Leave? Both of you can forget about leaving today. Although Lord Lanming has said that he only wants one of you, I'll capture you as well. I'm sure Lord Lanming will reward me. The protector of the sacrificial pavilion said with a hideous smile. Let's capture them alive and bring them back to the sacrificial pavilion. Swoosh. The other disciples of the sacrificial pavilion obeyed the protector's order and struck together. Surges of spiritual power condensed into threads and weaved into a net that immediately enveloped the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. The net of spiritual power was a kind of suppression technique. With the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion working together, even a half-step celestial human realm martial artist or demon god would not be able to escape. The 17 half-immortal pill furnaces in the palace were already a great opportunity. After being devoured by the divine tree, Chu Fengmian's strength had increased by 50%. In addition to the transformation of his immortal true body. Although there was no change in Chu Fengmian's realm, his true strength had more than doubled compared to before. When facing a celestial human realm expert, he would no longer be defenseless. Moreover, other than the chaotic sorcerer god elixir that helped Chu Fengmian to upgrade his immortal true body, he had also obtained a large number of human Dao elixirs. There were a total of 1,000 human Dao elixirs, which was also a great opportunity. There are other opportunities in the center of the storm, but I can't go in recklessly now. Chu Fengmian walked out of the palace and looked into the depths of the storm. Within the storm, there should be the remains of an ancient sect. Other than this palace, there should be other opportunities. However, when Chu Fengmian looked at the center of the storm, he felt a little uneasy. The center of the storm was full of danger. Chu Fengmian had no understanding of the situation within the storm. If he went in recklessly, it would be extremely dangerous for him. Moreover, there was no time to waste in the palace. Although the broken archipelago was huge with tens of thousands of islands, there were hundreds of disciples of the sacrificial pavilion who came to search for the Princess of the Sea. These hundreds of people would be able to find the Princess of the Sea in a few days' time. Chu Fengmian had to find the Princess of the Sea before them. Let's go! Chu Fengmian's figure flickered and suddenly flew out of the storm. His escape light was extremely fast. Chu Fengmian didn't need to resist the wind blades at all. These wind blades bombarded Chu Fengmian's body, but they couldn't cause any damage to Chu Fengmian. After he left the storm, he suddenly concealed his figure and flew towards an island in the broken archipelago. The island that Chu Fengmian was heading to was called Hula Island. It was an inconspicuous island in the broken archipelago. However, according to the jade talisman that the Princess of the Sea gave to Chu Fengmian, the Princess of the Sea was now on Hula Island. He had followed Wu Ju here to see what Wu Ju was up to. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to discover such a palace. End of chapter. Chapter 1963. Chu Fengmian acted quickly. In an instant, he killed all the disciples of the sacrificial pavilion, broke the array of the Hula Island, and escaped. By the time the other disciples of the sacrificial pavilion arrived, there was only chaos. Chu Fengmian acted so quickly that many of the martial artists and demon gods in the city could not see him clearly. They could only see that someone had rescued the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. The disciples of the sacrificial pavilion searched for a long time, but to no avail. They did not know who had rescued the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. These two have helpers? There's nothing strange about it. That lady is from the Lan family after all. Perhaps a hidden expert from the Lan family saved them. They can't have gone far. Continue searching. A few disciples of the sacrificial pavilion took the lead and continued searching. In the storm, Chu Fengmian used his powerful spiritual energy to open up a space in the storm to block the attacks of the wind blade. The storm in the center of the Broken Islands was a forbidden area for martial artists and demon gods below the half-step to the celestial realm. Even martial artists and demon gods of the half-step to the celestial realm would find it dangerous to explore the storm. Chu Fengmian hid there and no one could detect him. It's all thanks to young master's help that we managed to escape this calamity. The Princess of the Sea looked at Chu Fengmian and said gratefully, "Thank you, young master." Qi Yangshi also bowed at the side. Chu Fengmian had saved them a few times, so Qi Yangshi was extremely respectful to him. "It's okay." Chu Fengmian waved his hand and said, "It seems like your trip to the Broken Islands is not smooth sailing. The Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi must have come to the Broken Islands to search for the Lan family. However, it seemed like they were the only ones who did not say anything. Even their identities had been exposed. I didn't expect so many people back then to have sided with the traitor Lan Ming. This group of people is not worthy of being the Lan family's disciples. Qi Yangshe heard Chu Fengmian's words and shouted angrily. His tone was full of anger. Miss Ling sensed that something was wrong and hurriedly brought us away. However, our identities were still exposed. That traitor Lan Ming knew about it. The Princess of the Sea looked at Chu Fengmian and said hesitantly, "Young master's attire?" The Princess of the Sea could also tell that Chu Fengmian was dressed like a member of the Sea Sacrifice sect. She remembered that Chu Fengmian was going to the Sea Sword sect to do something. They hadn't seen each other for a while, but Chu Fengmian had managed to sneak into the Sea Sacrifice sect. There are some twists and turns, but I have already settled the matter of the Sea Sword sect. However, in order to deal with Lan Ming, I have now infiltrated the Sea Sacrificial sect. Chu Fengmian said calmly. Although Chu Fengmian's tone was casual, both the Princess of the Sea and Master Qi Yang knew that it wouldn't be easy to sneak into the Oceanic Sacrifice sect. As the #1 sect in the vast Sea Star Zone, the Oceanic Sacrificial sect was filled with experts and their examinations were extremely strict. Countless martial artists and Fey immortals who tried to sneak in had fallen. The fact that Chu Fengmian was able to sneak into the Poseidon sect and even become a protector was enough to shock them. "Young master, what should we do next? Lan Ming's strength is probably much stronger than before." The Princess of the Sea looked at Chu Fengmian and said, "That's right. I have already seen Lan Ming. His current strength is only one step away from the celestial realm. As long as he is willing, he can trigger the celestial tribulation at any time and enter the celestial realm." Chu Fengmian said calmly. "Lan Ming, that traitor, actually has such strength now?" Master Qi Yang was shocked when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. His tone was somewhat helpless. Lan Ming was once a genius of the Lan family. Later on, he killed countless people of the Lan family and condensed the extremely pure black whale bloodline. Moreover, he was nurtured by the Oceanic Sacrificial sect. His strength must be extremely terrifying. Although he had some expectations, he still felt helpless when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He could enter the celestial realm at any time. With such strength, there were not many people in the vast Sea Star Zone who could be Lan Ming's opponent. It was easier said than done to kill Lan Ming. Lan Ming's strength is already so terrifying. After hearing Chu Fengmian's explanation, the Princess of the Sea was slightly better than Master Qi Yang. She had already awakened the black whale bloodline, so she naturally knew how powerful it was. Although the Princess of the Sea was now at the peak of the 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, in terms of true strength, she was more powerful than most demonic immortals who were half a step away from the celestial realm. If the disciples of the Sacrificial Pavilion hadn't set up the array to seal off Hula Island, those people wouldn't have been able to stop her. Lan Ming's black whale bloodline was even more powerful than the Princess of the Sea. Moreover, he was nurtured by the Oceanic Sacrificial sect. It wasn't surprising that he had such strength. Our Lan family has an ancient secret technique called the whale transformation technique. It's said that if you master it, you can turn into a whale and become a black whale. Although it can't be compared to a real black whale, it can possess some of the black whale's power. Lan Ming hasn't broken through yet because he wants to cultivate the whale transformation technique. The Princess of the Sea thought for a moment and said, "The whale transformation technique has a high requirement for the black whale bloodline. It can only be cultivated with an extremely rich black whale bloodline." Transform into a black whale? There's such a secret technique? Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised. It was amazing that a human could transform into an innate divine beast, even if it only possessed 1% of the black whale's power. This secret technique reminded Chu Fengmian of the Battle Dragon technique. When the Battle Dragon technique reached the Great Completion realm, one could transform into the ancestor Tianlong. It seemed that the whale transformation technique was similar to the Battle Dragon technique. Lan Ming is now very powerful. I'm afraid there's no way to deal with him, Master Chiang said helplessly. With his talent, it was already the peak for him to cultivate to the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. After all, he wasn't a disciple of the Lan family but a servant of the Lan family. Although he wanted to take revenge, Lan Ming's current strength made him feel desperate. It's not impossible to deal with Lan Ming. As long as he hasn't broken through to the celestial realm, I have a way to kill him, Chu Fengmian said calmly. Young master, you have a way? The Princess of the Sea was about to give up when she heard that Lan Ming's strength was so terrifying. However, when she heard Chu Fengmian's words, she said excitedly, That's right. It's not easy to kill him with my strength alone. However, I've already called for help. As long as the helpers arrive and lure Lan Ming out of the oceanic sacrificial sect, we might be able to kill him, Chu Fengmian said as he took out a jade talisman. He transmitted a surge of spiritual energy into it. When he sensed the contents of the jade talisman, Chu Fengmian smiled. It seems that the helpers will be here soon. End of chapter. Chapter 1964. Before Chu Fengmian left the seashore sect, he notified the Mad Dragon Emperor and asked him to come to the Songhai Star Zone as soon as possible. Chu Fengmian opened the jade talisman and received a message from the Mad Dragon Emperor. The Mad Dragon Emperor had already arrived at the Songhai Star Zone. The Mad Dragon Emperor was a true sky realm expert. His speed was extremely fast. Since he had already arrived at the Songhai Star Zone, it wouldn't take long for him to arrive. But to kill Lan Ming, I need your help. Chu Fengmian looked at the Princess of the Sea and said. When the Mad Dragon Emperor arrived, there was only one step left in this plan. It was also the most important step, which was to lure Lan Ming out of the seashore sect. If Lan Ming hid in the seashore sect, even Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor wouldn't be able to kill him after 3 years. Only by luring Lan Ming out to a remote place could Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor suddenly attack and kill him. If they wanted to lure Lan Ming out, they needed the Princess of the Sea's help. Lan Ming wanted to complete the whale transformation art and desired the Xianjing bloodline very much. As long as Chu Fengmian told Lan Ming about the Princess of the Sea, Chu Fengmian didn't believe that Lan Ming would be able to hold himself back. We'll do as you say. As long as we can kill that traitor Lan Ming. The Princess of the Sea said hurriedly. Chu Fengmian looked around and said, Let's go. There's a teleportation formation in the seashore sect that leads directly to the Broken Islands. It's not convenient to attack here. Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor naturally had to be fully prepared. They had to seal off the surroundings in advance so that the seashore sect wouldn't know. However, just in case, Chu Fengmian had to lure Lan Ming to a more remote place. The seashore sect had a teleportation formation that led directly to the Broken Island. If the experts of the seashore sect knew that Lan Ming was being killed, they would quickly rush over. Just in case, it was better to go somewhere else first. Is there a remote place nearby? Chu Fengmian asked. Yes. There's a sea nearby called the Desolate Sea. It's extremely desolate and has no spiritual herbs. The spirit chi is also extremely thin. Normally, no oceanic race would step into it. Master Qi Yang hurriedly replied. Then let's go to the Desolate Sea. Chu Fengmian immediately knew where the Desolate Sea was. He grabbed the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi and stealthily left the storm and flew in the direction of the Desolate Sea. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also informed the Mad Dragon Emperor of the location of the Desolate Sea through the Jade Talisman. In less than an hour, Chu Fengmian had brought the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi to the Desolate Sea. At the same time, an ancient aura suddenly descended. Chu Fengmian knew that the owner of this aura was the Mad Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor is here, Chu Fengmian said while sizing up the Mad Dragon Emperor. After not seeing him for a while, the Mad Dragon Emperor's aura was much stronger than when Chu Fengmian left the Blue Dragon sect. After all, at that time, the Mad Dragon Emperor had just stepped into the celestial realm. He hadn't even had the time to fully control the power of the celestial realm. During this period of time, the Mad Dragon Emperor had been cultivating hard in the Blue Dragon sect. He had already fully mastered the power of the celestial realm. At the same time, the Blue Dragon sect's inheritance was extremely ancient. It came from the legendary country of 10,000 dragons. In the Blue Dragon sect, there were many Dragon Emperor secret techniques that only Celestial Realm Dragon Emperors could cultivate. After cultivating these Dragon Emperor secret techniques, the Mad Dragon Emperor's strength was even stronger than before. In such a short time, the Mad Dragon Emperor's strength had increased by more than 50%. The Mad Dragon Emperor was originally a peerless genius in the Blue Dragon sect. He once had the intention of breaking through the heaven-defying tribulation. There was no doubt about his talent. After stepping into the celestial realm, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds every day. Master, you have gained a lot from your trip to the Songhai Star Zone. The Mad Dragon Emperor glanced at Chu Fengmian. He could tell that Chu Fengmian's cultivation realm didn't seem to be any different. However, his strength was also much stronger than when he was in the Blue Dragon sect. In such a short time, Chu Fengmian's strength had become even more tyrannical. The Mad Dragon Emperor was incomparably amazed by the speed of his growth. It also confirmed that his decision to appoint Chu Fengmian as the Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect was incomparably wise. Alright, let's not talk about this first. This time, I called the Mad Dragon Emperor over because I want you to help me deal with someone. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and said. Time was of the essence. Previously, Chu Fengmian had killed Wu Ju. This news might not be known to Lan Ming in a short time. However, if too much time passed, Lan Ming would notice some problems. Now that the Mad Dragon Emperor had arrived, Chu Fengmian didn't want to waste any more time. Who is the person that Master wants to deal with this time? The Mad Dragon Emperor also heard Chu Fengmian's incomparably serious tone. He couldn't help but become serious. He knew Chu Fengmian's strength. With Chu Fengmian's strength, unless he encountered a true Celestial Realm expert, Chu Fengmian should be able to kill him. Since Chu Fengmian called him over this time, it meant that the person that Chu Fengmian wanted to deal with this time was someone that Chu Fengmian couldn't deal with alone. A Celestial Realm expert. The Mad Dragon Emperor asked softly. Only a Celestial Realm expert could make Chu Fengmian unable to deal with him. No, but it's almost there. The person I want to deal with is Lan Ming of the Sea Sacrificial sect. His strength has already reached the point where he can pass the great tribulation of the celestial realm at any time. He's just suppressing his realm. If he's willing to not suppress his realm, he can step into the celestial realm in an instant. Chu Fengmian said. Lan Ming? I've heard of this person. The Mad Dragon Emperor frowned. He seemed to have heard of this name. This person is a super genius of the Sea Sacrificial sect. It's said that he's only one step away from the Ocean Emperor's position. Moreover, he has the bloodline of the Black Whale. It's indeed not easy to deal with him. Although the Mad Dragon Emperor had been hiding on the mountain peak, using the chaotic qi to suppress his injuries, he still had a disciple, Yin Longxian. Usually, Yin Longxian would also tell the Mad Dragon Emperor about the things that happened in the nearby star domains. This included the rising genius experts in the various star domains. He had also heard of Lan Ming's name. The Sea Sacrificial sect. As far as I know, there are at least 3 Celestial Realm experts in the Sea Sacrificial sect, maybe even more, the Mad Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice. His tone was incomparably fearful. He was also incomparably fearful of the Sea Sacrificial sect. Yes, the Sea Sacrificial sect is indeed not easy to deal with. However, I don't plan to deal with the Sea Sacrificial sect this time. I just want to kill Lan Ming, Chu Fengmian said. His tone was filled with dense killing intent. End of chapter. Chapter 1965. I will find a way to lure him out. Then, you and I will work together to kill Lan Ming. Chu Fengmian said coldly. I will seal the space so that the news won't spread. Even if Lan Ming is killed, the Sea Sacrifice sect won't know that we did it. If we lure him out of the Sea Sacrifice sect, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with him. The Mad Dragon Emperor nodded. If Chu Fengmian wanted to rush into the Sea Sacrifice sect to kill Lan Ming, the Mad Dragon Emperor would have to persuade Chu Fengmian. After all, he had heard of the strength of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Even though the Mad Dragon Emperor was a Sky Realm expert, he didn't dare to barge into the Sea Sacrifice sect. Once he did, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return. However, if Lan Ming left the Sea Sacrifice sect, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to kill him. Lan Ming was alone. Even though he could step into the Celestial Realm at any time, he was no match for a true Celestial Realm powerhouse like the Mad Dragon Emperor. Moreover, Chu Fengmian would help. If the two of them worked together, they would have more than a 90% chance of defeating Lan Ming. Alright, Mad Dragon Emperor, you hide first. Wait for me to lure Lan Ming over. Chu Fengmian said. The Mad Dragon Emperor nodded. His figure flashed and gradually hid behind Chu Fengmian. With his strength, even Chu Fengmian couldn't detect the Mad Dragon Emperor's existence if he deliberately hid. Alright, the two of you don't have to struggle. Wait for me to lure Lan Ming over. Chu Fengmian looked at the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi. Suddenly, his palm moved and caught the two of them in his palm. It was as if he was holding them both. At the same time, a compass appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. It was the compass that Wu Ju had given him before he left the sacrificial pavilion. This compass had the ability to communicate with Lan Ming. Chu Fengmian injected a stream of spiritual power into it and said at the same time, Lan Ming, I have already caught the person you want. Come over now and undo my restriction. I will hand these two people over to you. Chu Fengmian believed that Lan Ming on the other side could hear this voice. Sure enough, the moment Chu Fengmian spoke, an angry roar came from the compass. Impudent brat, how dare you bargain with me? You are courting death. Tell me where you are quickly. Be obedient and I can still spare your life. Otherwise, I will activate the restriction and you will die. Lan Ming's voice that came from the compass contained an incomparably dignified and lofty voice that was full of threat. Is it? You can activate the restriction to kill me, but unfortunately, you will never be able to find the person you are looking for. No need to talk nonsense. If you agree to remove the restriction on me, I will tell you where I am. Chu Fengmian snorted coldly again and again, as if he was bargaining with Lan Ming. His tone was somewhat threatening. Lan Ming's words from the compass were clearly filled with boundless fury. You little brat! You dare to threaten me? It seems that I, Lan Ming, am really too kind. A little brat dares to threaten me? Die! Rumble! Suddenly, the compass exploded, and a figure emerged from the center of the compass. This figure was Lan Ming. The compass seemed to contain a teleportation array. Lan Ming used the compass to cross 1,000 miles. He took the bait. Chu Fengmian smiled when he saw Lan Ming's figure appear. He had long seen that there was a teleportation array in the compass. Although it was hidden very well, it couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian had just bargained with Lan Ming to lure him out. Lan Ming had a transcendent status in the Oceanic Sacrifice sect and had always been arrogant. How could he tolerate the provocation of an ant like Chu Fengmian? After being provoked by Chu Fengmian, Lan Ming directly teleported over through the compass. Brat, you dare to threaten me? I'll make you suffer all the pain in the world. Lan Ming's figure condensed and looked directly at Chu Fengmian. His eyes were filled with boundless anger. He suddenly waved his hand as if he was activating the restriction on Chu Fengmian. He wanted Chu Fengmian to suffer all the pain in the world. But at this moment, Lan Ming's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly realized that the restriction he had planted in Chu Fengmian's Tao heart had disappeared. What? Lan Ming, you want to kill me? Unfortunately, today is the day you die. Chu Fengmian laughed and suddenly said, Dragon Emperor, make your move. All right. The mad Dragon Emperor's figure suddenly appeared behind Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, an incomparably huge dragon claw blasted toward Lan Ming. This sudden change completely exceeded Lan Ming's expectations. Especially when the mad Dragon Emperor attacked, the power contained in it was the power of a true sky human realm powerhouse. Lan Ming had always been incomparably arrogant. He didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes at all. In his opinion, even if Chu Fengmian had some tricks up his sleeve, he would be unable to withstand a single blow. However, Lan Ming never imagined that a sky human realm powerhouse would suddenly attack him at this time. Who are you, senior? I'm an elder of the Sea Sacrifice sect. No matter what benefits this brat promised you, don't make a mistake. You're provoking the entire Sea Sacrifice sect by attacking me. Lan Ming hurriedly activated his power to resist as he shouted loudly. Sea Sacrifice sect? It's nothing. After killing you, I'd like to see if the old man of the Sea Sacrifice sect dares to be my enemy. The mad Dragon Emperor sneered. Although he was afraid of the Sea Sacrifice sect, he wasn't afraid of the threat in Lan Ming's mouth. Moreover, the Sea Sacrifice sect might not know that he killed Lan Ming today. Rumble! The mad Dragon Emperor transformed into his original form and bombarded with dragon claws. Even with Lan Ming's strength, he couldn't defend against the mad Dragon Emperor's continuous attack. Damn it! Lan Ming's expression suddenly changed. He knew that the mad Dragon Emperor and Chu Fengmian were obviously determined to kill him today. They weren't afraid of the threat of the Sea Sacrifice sect at all. All the energy in his body suddenly burst out, and his figure disappeared without a trace. He's trying to escape. The mad Dragon Emperor roared. Although he could kill Lan Ming if he was alone, the mad Dragon Emperor wouldn't be able to stop Lan Ming if he wanted to escape. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1966. Lan Ming's strength was already at the celestial being realm. Even though Mad Dragon Emperor was stronger than Lan Ming, he couldn't kill Lan Ming directly. Seeing Lan Ming disappear, Mad Dragon Emperor's face showed a bit of anxiety. If Lan Ming was allowed to escape, there would be endless trouble in the future. Just the revenge of the Sea Sacrifice sect alone would be unbearable. Don't worry, he can't escape. Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw Lan Ming's figure disappear. Ancestor Tianlong's power gathered at this moment and blasted out. The entire desolate sea was sealed by this power. Tianlong change. Seal. Chu Fengmian had expected that Lan Ming would escape. After all, Mad Dragon Emperor was a true celestial being realm expert. No matter how arrogant Lan Ming was, he could only escape. Chu Fengmian had been waiting for this moment. He didn't make a move because he wanted to seal Lan Ming in the desolate sea. Ancestor Tianlong's power had already been scattered in the desolate sea by Chu Fengmian. With Chu Fengmian's activation, all the power burst out instantly. The entire desolate sea was instantly sealed by layers of seals, turning the entire desolate sea into a cage. Even Lan Ming couldn't escape. Ancestor Tianlong's power. Wasn't the primogenitor sky dragon's blood essence in your body extracted by me? Also, how did you manage to break my restrictions? Lan Ming stared at Chu Fengmian in disbelief as he looked at the sealed desolate sea. Who the hell are you? In his opinion, he had already known all of Chu Fengmian's trump cards. He had even planted a seal on Chu Fengmian's Tao heart and controlled it. Chu Fengmian was only Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. In his opinion, even if Chu Fengmian had some trump cards, it was only SOSO. He didn't expect that Chu Fengmian wasn't an ant in his eyes, but a true dragon. It wasn't Mad Dragon Emperor who was threatening his life, but Chu Fengmian. Mad Dragon Emperor might be strong, but he couldn't stop Lan Ming if he wanted to escape. However, Chu Fengmian had sealed the entire desolate sea, which made him desperate. There was no possibility for him to escape. So, a jade talisman suddenly flew out of Lan Ming's body when he spoke. Lan Ming seemed to want to send a message to the experts of the Sea Sacrifice sect so that they could come and rescue him. However, when the jade talisman encountered the layers of seals, it came to a stop and was caught by Chu Fengmian. Lan Ming's expression became even more unsightly. Because of the lockdown, he couldn't even send a message to the experts of the Sea Sacrifice sect. In other words, even if he tried to stall for time, it would be useless, because the experts of the Sea Sacrifice sect had no idea that he was being surrounded. Who are you people? If you dare to kill me, you'll suffer the wrath of the Seashore sect. If you need anything, I can give it to you. In this situation, Lan Ming calmed down and said to Chu Fengmian, as long as he didn't die today, then when he returned to the Seaborn sect, he would have 10,000 ways to get revenge on Chu Fengmian. With the situation like this, Lan Ming was willing to lower his head for the time being. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian sneered. Since he had attacked today, there was no reason for him to stop. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had been entrusted with this task, so he would naturally do as he said. Die. Chu Fengmian didn't waste time talking nonsense. After sealing the space, 2 sword lights flew out from his back. Chu Fengmian didn't dare to use his full strength in the Seaborn sect, but he had no scruples now. Chu Fengmian attacked with both swords, and countless sword lights slashed at Lan Ming. At the same time, the Mad Dragon Emperor also attacked. He transformed into his true form, and countless dragon claws slashed down from the sky. Damn it! Damn it! I didn't expect to be tricked like this. If I can escape today, both of you will die. Lan Ming roared. He had never suffered such a great loss since he joined the Seaborn sect. Lan Ming grabbed with his hand, and his body swelled wildly. A huge whale phantom shrouded his back. It was the phantom of the mysterious whale. The mysterious whale bloodline. The mysterious whale bloodline in Lan Ming's body was obtained by killing countless disciples of the Lan family. It was incomparably pure. Later on, he cultivated the whale transformation art, which made the power of the mysterious whale bloodline even more terrifying. The power that erupted at this moment was 10 times stronger than the power that Lan Ming had just displayed. After confirming that Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor wouldn't let him go, Lan Ming didn't hide his strength anymore. He unleashed his full strength and punched at Chu Fengmian. The shocking power of this punch shook the heavens and the earth. The spatial seal around Chu Fengmian couldn't help but shake. Lan Ming also understood that Chu Fengmian was the core of this battle. As long as he could kill Chu Fengmian, he could break the seal around him and escape alive. Therefore, Lan Ming aimed his attack at Chu Fengmian. In an instant, he unleashed his full strength. 10 fist winds fell at the same time. The power of any one of these 10 fist winds was almost comparable to the bombardment of an ordinary sky human realm martial artist and demon god. The power of these 10 fist winds wasn't inferior to an immortal technique. Under such a punch, any martial artist or demon god below the celestial realm would only have a dead end. However, Chu Fengmian was an exception. Although Chu Fengmian was only at the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, his amazing fortuitous encounters had already made Chu Fengmian's strength unfathomable. Moreover, Chu Fengmian's immortal true body had advanced further before this. Even if it was a one-on-one battle, he might not be afraid of Lan Ming. Tri-Sun Raging Flame Sword. Four-Sided Hurricane Sword. Boom! Chu Fengmian unleashed both swords. 2 completely different forces erupted from these 2 spiritual swords. Shocking sword intent erupted from Chu Fengmian's back and integrated into these 2 swords. Chu Fengmian had obtained the Sword Dao Totem of the Sea Sword sect. Although he hadn't fully comprehended it, It had allowed his sword Dao to advance by leaps and bounds in a short period of time. Now, Chu Fengmian could unleash the two sword techniques of the first Sword Emperor in an instant, transforming wind and assisting fire. The power of these two swords was far greater than the power of a single sword. Two dazzling sword lights collided with the 10-fist winds unleashed by Lan Ming in the air. The two forces collided in the air with earth-shattering power. Chu Fengmian felt as if his body was about to fall apart. The collision of the two forces was too much for Chu Fengmian's body to bear. Cracks started to appear on his body. The collision of these two forces was almost equivalent to the collision of the true sky human realm power. Even Chu Fengmian's immortal true body was about to shatter. End of chapter. Chapter 1967. However, Chu Fengmian's physical body was instantly reconstructed with a thought. After condensing the immortal true body, Chu Fengmian could recover his physical body in an instant. This little injury had no effect on Chu Fengmian at all. The power of this sword had already surpassed ordinary immortal techniques in terms of profoundness. Of course, Chu Fengmian's realm was too low. The power he displayed was still some distance away from that of a true celestial realm powerhouse. However, the profoundness of the sword technique was not inferior at all. It truly contained the power of an immortal technique. It was already extremely terrifying for a Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu to be able to display such a sword technique. This was also the strongest sword technique Chu Fengmian could display. Chu Fengmian's power had reached a bottleneck. Only when Chu Fengmian broke through and stepped into the half-step celestial realm could he unleash more power. Chu Fengmian couldn't bear it. On the other side, Lan Ming wasn't any better. He also retreated continuously. His body shook a little and he suffered some minor injuries. Lan Ming also cultivated some secret techniques of the body refining Dao. In addition, he contained the bloodline of the black whale. His body was extremely tough. However, he still suffered some minor injuries under the collision of power. This collision was comparable to a celestial realm powerhouse. After all, he wasn't a true celestial realm powerhouse. It was extremely strenuous for him to resist this collision. This Lan Ming is really powerful. He's only a half-step celestial realm powerhouse and hasn't passed the celestial tribulation. It's actually difficult for me to defeat him. If he passes the celestial realm, I'm afraid even Mad Dragon Emperor and I won't be able to kill him. Chu Fengmian looked at Lan Ming and marveled at his power. Lan Ming was only a half-step celestial realm powerhouse and hadn't passed the celestial tribulation. Once he passed the celestial tribulation, his strength would increase countless times. At that time, no one would have a chance to kill Lan Ming. At least before Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial realm, there wouldn't be such a chance. Now that Lan Ming hadn't passed the celestial tribulation, it was the last chance for Chu Fengmian to make a move. It was indeed difficult for Chu Fengmian to kill Lan Ming in a one-on-one battle. However, Chu Fengmian was fully prepared today. He wasn't the only one who wanted to kill Lan Ming. Mad Dragon Emperor, do it! Chu Fengmian shouted coldly, and the Mad Dragon Emperor suddenly attacked. Kill him while he's down. Lan Ming had suffered a minor injury when he fought with Chu Fengmian. His attention was now focused on Chu Fengmian, so it was the best opportunity for the Mad Dragon Emperor to attack. Rolling dragon power erupted and transformed into the shape of ancient battle dragons. It was as if a group of dragons were roaring and attacking Lan Ming. Each primordial battle dragon was the condensation of the Mad Dragon Monarch's power. There were dozens of primordial battle dragons in total. Their combined power far surpassed the 10-fist winds that Lan Ming had just unleashed. Damn it! Whale transformation art! I am the black whale! The primordial war dragons descended together and charged at Lan Ming. Lan Ming was keenly aware of this. A somewhat insane smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, his entire body swelled. Vaguely, Lan Ming merged with the shadow of the black whale behind him and transformed into a real black whale. After transforming into the black whale, Lan Ming's strength suddenly increased countless times. He wasn't afraid of the primordial battle dragons that descended one after another. His huge body rushed forward and crashed into all the primordial battle dragons, shattering them. Transforming into the black whale? Chu Fengmian frowned. He originally thought that he had already pushed Lan Ming's strength to the limit. He didn't expect Lan Ming's strength to soar countless times in the blink of an eye. This person's accumulation of strength was simply unfathomable. In a short period of time, his strength had soared 100 times. It should be known that Lan Ming's strength in his normal state was almost invincible among the half-step celestial being realm. Chu Fengmian didn't expect Lan Ming to have hidden his strength so deeply. His true strength was 100 times stronger than his normal state. After transforming into the black whale, Lan Ming's strength was almost on par with the Mad Dragon Emperor. He had truly stepped into the celestial being realm. This is not the complete whale transformation art. Lan Ming can't maintain the black whale state for long. The Princess of the Sea saw that Lan Ming had transformed into the black whale, and her voice was quickly transmitted. She could see that Lan Ming hadn't completely transformed into the black whale. He was only using the power of the whale transformation art to temporarily achieve this. It was a secret technique that could increase his strength in a short period of time. So what if I can't maintain it for long? This period of time is enough for me to kill all of you. You people dared to ruin my plan, causing my efforts to be in vain. Today, I'm going to kill you all. Make up for my loss. Lan Ming sneered. Suddenly, a series of thunderclaps sounded in the sky. At the same time, tribulation clouds began to condense in the sky above the entire desolate sea. Lan Ming's face revealed a hint of arrogance when he heard the thunderclaps. No matter how powerful you are, you can't kill me today. As long as you can't kill me today, it won't be long before you die. Great tribulation of the celestial being. Chu Fengmian knew what kind of tribulation cloud it was when he saw the tribulation clouds condensing. It was Lan Ming's great tribulation of the celestial being. In this desperate situation, Lan Ming no longer suppressed his strength. He unleashed his full strength and attracted the great tribulation of the celestial being. Originally, Lan Ming had been unwilling to break through in order to cultivate the whale transformation art. However, today, he was surrounded by Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor. He couldn't care less. Once the great tribulation of the celestial being was triggered, Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor had to retreat. Otherwise, they would die in Lan Ming's great tribulation of the celestial being. What should we do? The Mad Dragon Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian and asked. Their original plan was to not give Lan Ming a chance to trigger the great tribulation of the celestial being. They would directly attack and kill Lan Ming. However, both Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor had underestimated Lan Ming. As a result, Lan Ming had already triggered the great tribulation of the celestial being. If they continued to fight, they would only end up dying together. However, if they let Lan Ming go today, Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor would have to face the Mad Dragon Emperor's crazy revenge. Lan Ming's strength alone would be above Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor once he crossed the great tribulation of the celestial being and stepped into the celestial being realm. Lan Ming had also obtained countless opportunities. His foundation could be said to be terrifying. These opportunities would all erupt when Lan Ming stepped into the celestial being realm. In an instant, Lan Ming's strength would soar more than 10 times. At that time, he alone would be a great threat. At this time, they were stuck in a dilemma. We can't let this person go. Chu Fengmian's eyes were incomparably cold. Letting Lan Ming go at this time was no different from letting a tiger return to the mountain. End of chapter. Chapter 1968. If he didn't kill Lan Ming today, the one who would die in the future would definitely be Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was well aware of this. With Lan Ming's character, once he stepped into the celestial realm, the first person he would kill would be Chu Fengmian. Besieging Lan Ming this time was the best opportunity to kill him. They couldn't give it up. Kill. Before the great tribulation of the celestial being descends, kill this person. Chu Fengmian sent a message to the Mad Dragon Emperor with his spiritual sense, and made up his mind to kill him. It would take some time for the Deva tribulation to descend. Chu Fengmian had to kill Lan Ming before that. This was also Chu Fengmian's last chance. However, Lan Ming also knew this, which was why he deliberately used the whale transformation art. At this moment, he transformed into a black whale and forcefully passed through this period of time. Killing Lan Ming, who had transformed into a black whale, was almost as difficult as killing a sky realm expert like the Mad Dragon Emperor. Especially before the Deva tribulation descended, killing Lan Ming now was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Kill! The Mad Dragon Emperor also knew the difficulty, but he was willing to believe in Chu Fengmian. The word kill also represented the Berserk Dragon Emperor's attitude. He had taken out his killing intent. In that instant, Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor did not hold back at all as they unleashed all of their killing move. Above the desolate sea, the tribulation clouds were gathering at an extremely fast speed. They would probably finish gathering within 100 breath. Once the tribulation cloud was completed, it would be the time for the Deva tribulation to descend. Chu Fengmian, Mad Dragon Emperor, and Lan Ming would all die to the Empyrean tribulation. The more people there were, the more terrifying the power of the celestial tribulation became, until it was unstoppable. The Mad Dragon Monarch also knew how terrifying the sky human tribulation was. He made a prompt decision and suddenly roared. The power of the dragons gathered in his palm, and a sharp claw fiercely bombarded downward. Ancestor's fourth form. With the Mad Dragon Emperor's current celestial realm cultivation, the power of the 9 moves of the primogenitor was completely different from that of Chu Fengmian. It was a true immortal art. In fact, the 9 forms of the primogenitor was the most powerful move among the countless immortal technique. As the claw struck out, a tyrannical force slashed down. This tyrannical force seemed as though it was going to tear the entire desolate sea apart. The fight between celestial realm powerhouses had the power to tear apart heaven and earth. The scene before him couldn't be clearer. If the Mad Dragon Emperor was willing, he could even tear the desolate sea apart with his full strength. Now, the Mad Dragon Emperor's target was Lan Ming. However, even the aftermath was unbearable for a half-step celestial being. It bombarded the desolate sea, creating countless bottomless trenches. 9 profound swordsmanship. Tan Lang. A huge door. Lu Ciyuan. Heavenly secrets. 7 kills. Chu Fengmian attacked at the same time. The first 5 forms of the 9 profound sword art were all slashed out. The power of the 5 forms fused into one, condensing the power of the stars in the sky into a river of sword energy that slashed out with a loud bang. Lan Ming, who had turned into a black whale, was immediately enveloped by the Sword Chi Galaxy. In the Sword Chi Galaxy, thousands of sword energy slashed towards Lan Ming in an instant. Any one of the sword energy was enough to easily kill a half-step celestial being realm martial artist and demon god. However, Lan Ming, who was trapped in the Sword Chi Galaxy, did not show the slightest bit of panic. He laughed continuously. The giant black whale's body suddenly erupted with a tyrannical force that swept across the surroundings. Bang! 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 The Sword Chi Galaxy was instantly shattered under the sweeping force. At the same time, the Mad Dragon Emperor's primogenitor's 4th form also bombarded Lan Ming's body. However, it only left a small wound on Lan Ming's body. This wound was not even worth mentioning to the incomparably huge mysterious whale. Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor's joint attack only caused Lan Ming to suffer a minor injury. It was far from harming his core. Ha 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 ha, you two trash want to kill me? I've turned into a black whale. Even 2 or 3 celestial being realm powerhouses can't kill me. Lan Ming looked at the tribulation clouds that were condensing in the sky and laughed continuously. If you don't leave now, you won't have the chance to. More than half of the tribulation clouds in the sky had condensed. It seemed that because Lan Ming's power was getting stronger, the speed of the celestial being tribulation was getting faster and faster. If this continued, the celestial being tribulation would definitely descend in 10 breaths of time. Lan Ming is really powerful. He has turned into a black whale and is much stronger than ordinary celestial being realm powerhouses. The more urgent it was, the calmer Chu Fengmian analyzed everything in front of him. Chu Fengmian struck out countless sword lights in succession, but he couldn't hurt Lan Ming. If it was a veteran ocean emperor like the Linjian Ocean Emperor, he would have fallen under the joint attack of Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor. However, Lan Ming only suffered some minor injuries. Chu Fengmian knew that this was the power of the black whale bloodline in Lan Ming's body. The stronger the innate divine beast bloodline was, the more the power of the bloodline would be stimulated. The gap between the beast god and the beast god of the same realm would become bigger and bigger. For example, Chu Fengmian integrated with the Genesis Qi and became a heaven and earth variant. Perhaps it wasn't too heaven-defying when he was in the Emperor realm because Chu Fengmian's realm was too low and he couldn't exert the true power of a heaven and earth variant. When he reached the half-step celestial being realm, or even the celestial being realm, Chu Fengmian's strength would increase countless times and he would become a true heaven-defying figure. But if he didn't kill Lan Ming today, then Chu Fengmian would have no future. A thunderclap resounded above Chu Fengmian's head. This thunderclap also indicated that the celestial being tribulation was about to descend. Rolling tribulation thunder surged in the tribulation clouds as if it could descend at any time. Human Emperor Jar. Time was running out, so Chu Fengmian didn't hold back. With a long roar, an ancient jar suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. This ancient jar appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm and suddenly turned into a long halberd, the human emperor halberd. What's this? An extreme immortal weapon? Why do you have such a thing in your hand? The moment Lan Ming saw the human emperor halberd in Chu Fengmian's palm, he felt a sense of threat in his heart. This human emperor halberd seemed to be a serious threat to him. The power on it made him feel a kind of immortal weapon power. At the same time, Lan Ming also saw that there seemed to be cracks on the human emperor halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand. When he saw the cracks, Lan Ming's eyes showed some disdain and the fear in his eyes disappeared a lot. It turns out to be an incomplete extreme immortal weapon. It's nothing. You want to deal with me? You're daydreaming. Genius remembered this address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1969. A complete extreme Tao immortal weapon had the power of a celestial realm powerhouse just from the weapon spirit, not to mention the original power of an extreme Tao immortal weapon. An extreme Tao immortal weapon was a great threat to celestial realm powerhouses and even profound heaven realm powerhouses. Even Lan Ming was afraid of the power of an extreme Tao immortal weapon. However, when he saw that the human emperor's halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand was only an incomplete extreme Tao immortal weapon, his fear lessened a lot. An extreme Tao immortal weapon would lose a great deal of power even if it was slightly incomplete. It could even lose 90% of its power. In his opinion, Chu Fengmian was just a 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Even if he had an incomplete extreme Tao immortal weapon, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, this extreme Tao immortal weapon was still a supreme treasure even if it was incomplete. If he could repair this extreme Tao immortal weapon, He would be able to defeat countless celestial realm powerhouses when he reached the celestial realm in the future. This extreme Tao immortal weapon isn't something you are qualified to possess. Give it to me. The moment the human emperor's halberd appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand, Lan Ming suddenly took the initiative to attack. He transformed into a huge profound whale and charged at Chu Fengmian. At the same time, a surge of spiritual power suddenly transformed into an arm out of thin air and grabbed at the human emperor's halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand. The moment Lan Ming saw the human emperor's halberd, he immediately wanted to snatch it. He took the initiative to attack and snatched the halberd. When Lan Ming attacked, Chu Fengmian felt that the human emperor's halberd in his hand was about to be snatched away. The arm that appeared out of thin air wasn't a real arm, but a secret technique that specialized in snatching other people's spiritual weapons. If he wasn't careful, the human emperor's halberd might really be snatched away by Lan Ming. The ancient emperor's art of war? Lan Ming actually knows this ancient secret technique? Chu Fengmian's mind stirred and he suddenly understood that Lan Ming was using a secret technique called the ancient emperor's art of war. Although this secret technique was not an immortal technique, its power was above countless immortal techniques. It was said that this secret technique was created by an extremely powerful expert in the primordial era, the ancient emperor. It specialized in seizing other people's spiritual artifacts. In the primordial era, countless famous experts had their spiritual weapons stolen by the ancient emperor using the ancient emperor's art of seizing war. It was even said that the ancient emperor's seizing art of war could even seize an extreme Tao immortal weapon. Although it was not an immortal art, it was better than an immortal art. However, Chu Fengmian knew that the ancient emperor's art of seizing war had been lost not long after the ancient emperor's death. He didn't expect Lan Ming to know this secret technique. Lan Ming suddenly attacked and used the ancient emperor's art of war to seize the human emperor's halberd in Chu Fengmian's hand. In an instant, he almost succeeded. Fortunately, the emperor's jar had completely recognized Chu Fengmian as its master before this. This allowed Chu Fengmian's control over the emperor's jar to be far greater than before. Only then could he resist the ancient emperor's art of war. However, Chu Fengmian had also witnessed the terror of the ancient emperor's art of war. Chu Fengmian had obtained the fragments of the human emperor's jar bit by bit before condensing it. He didn't know how much effort he had put in. However, the ancient emperor's art of war could seize the human emperor's jar that Chu Fengmian had painstakingly obtained in an instant. It was no wonder that countless experts of the primordial era had taken action and destroyed this secret technique when the ancient emperor had died. Chu Fengmian would cry if he thought about how the spiritual weapon that he had painstakingly refined for hundreds or thousands of years had suddenly been seized by someone using the ancient emperor's art of war. This Lan Ming has also obtained countless shocking opportunities and fortuitous encounters. He even knows a secret technique like the ancient emperor's art of war. Once I kill him, all these opportunities and fortuitous encounters will be mine. Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. Suddenly, he showed weakness and the human emperor's halberd flew out as if it was about to be seized by the ancient emperor's art of war. It's mine. This extreme Tao immortal weapon is mine. Lan Ming laughed heartily when he saw this. He chased after it and tried to grab the human emperor's halberd. However, at that moment, a dazzling light erupted from the human emperor's halberd. The light condensed on the tip of the halberd and blasted towards Lan Ming. Since Lan Ming wanted to seize the human emperor's halberd, Chu Fengmian would let him have a taste of the power of the human emperor's halberd. Even though the human emperor's halberd wasn't complete, the power it contained was still a disaster for sky humans and Fey celestials. Boom! Lan Ming originally thought that the ancient emperor's art of war he had executed was enough to seize the human emperor's halberd. However, he hadn't expected this to happen. The tip of the halberd struck his body mercilessly. A gash was cut open on the massive mysterious whale's body by the tip of the halberd. This gash was hundreds of feet wide, and a copious amount of blood flowed out. Lan Ming was severely injured by this move. Dragon extermination. At the same time, a violent, destructive force descended from the sky and slammed into Lan Ming's body. Mad Dragon Emperor also seized this opportunity to attack. This attack caused Lan Ming's injuries to worsen. This violent destructive force penetrated Lan Ming's body through the wound. In an instant, Lan Ming's aura became much more unstable. His strength was reduced to less than 1/10 of its original. Kill! Lan Ming was severely injured and his strength was reduced to less than 10%. This was the best opportunity to kill Lan Ming. Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate at all. His figure flickered continuously and both swords slashed towards Lan Ming. He wanted to eliminate the root of the problem and take this opportunity to kill Lan Ming. Boom! However, at this moment, a thunderous roar descended. At the same time, a bolt of tribulation lightning struck. The sky being tribulation had descended. At this most critical moment, Lan Ming's sky being tribulation had descended. Mad Dragon Emperor's expression changed abruptly as he roared at Chu Fengmian. Run! The sky being tribulation had descended. If Chu Fengmian was still entangled with Lan Ming, both of them would die. When the sky being tribulation descended, if there was more than one person within the range, the power that erupted was enough to destroy everything. The power of the heavenly Tao wasn't something that humans could contend against. Ha 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 ha, there's always a way out. Boy, you can't kill me today. As long as you can't kill me, you'll die when I step into the sky being realm. Lan Ming seemed to have seen a ray of light when the sky being tribulation suddenly descended. Lan Ming looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed ferociously. I'll bring your friends, your family, and your women to you. I'll torture, ravage, and let you experience all the pain in the world. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1970. Lan Ming was a vengeful person. If he was allowed to live today, it would be a disaster. Take them away. I want to kill this man. Chu Fengmian was well aware of this. He glanced at Lan Ming and roared at the Mad Dragon Emperor. Then, Chu Fengmian rushed towards Lan Ming without hesitation. He held the human emperor's halberd and slashed at Lan Ming. Lan Ming did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so crazy. He did not care about the Great Tribulation and wanted to kill him. He wanted to die together with him. Master! Mad Dragon Emperor looked at Chu Fengmian's crazy actions and hesitated. Go! This man is seriously injured. I can kill him alone. Chu Fengmian shouted angrily. Within the range of the Deva Tribulation, the more martial artists and demon immortals there were, the more powerful the Deva Tribulation would be. If there were only Chu Fengmian and Lan Ming, Chu Fengmian still had some ability to resist. Now that Lan Ming was seriously injured, Chu Fengmian could leave as long as he killed Lan Ming. After all, the target of the Great Tribulation was not Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian left the area, the Great Tribulation would not chase after him. If Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming, he could escape without a trace. Go! Mad Dragon Emperor understood Chu Fengmian's thoughts. He knew that it was useless for him to stay here. He grabbed the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi and flew out of the desolate sea. Mad Dragon Emperor and the other two left the desolate sea. The Great Tribulation in the sky had indeed weakened a lot. Even so, this was far more powerful than the ordinary celestial being tribulation. It was much more terrifying than the heaven-defying tribulation that Chu Fengmian had experienced. Kill! Chu Fengmian knew that he had no way out. He suddenly rushed towards Lan Ming with the human emperor's halberd in his hand and used a halberd technique to slash at Lan Ming. The halberd of the human emperor was sharp and deadly. The human emperor's halberd had recognized Chu Fengmian as its master. Even if Chu Fengmian did not know any profound halberd techniques, a few of his moves were as profound as a heaven-class martial technique. Damn it, what are you doing? Do you want to perish together with me? Are you crazy? Lan Ming saw Chu Fengmian's figure rushing over and felt something was wrong. His expression changed. He had thought that once the Deva-human tribulation descended, Chu Fengmian and the Mad Dragon Emperor would have to retreat. Otherwise, when the Deva tribulation descended, whether it was him, Chu Fengmian, or the Mad Dragon Emperor, they would all perish together. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to be so crazy. In order to kill him, Chu Fengmian was willing to risk the Deva tribulation to kill Lan Ming. Seeing Chu Fengmian rushing over, Lan Ming mobilized all his power and prepared to resist. However, he had already been seriously injured by the attack just now, leaving him with less than a tenth of his full strength. Furthermore, he had never guessed that Chu Fengmian would be so crazy as to risk his Deva tribulation to kill him. He was completely unprepared. The spiritual power that Lan Ming hurriedly gathered couldn't withstand the sharpness of the human emperor's halberd and was easily broken. The human emperor's halberd pierced through the body of the giant profound whale. Suddenly, the giant profound whale body that Lan Ming had transformed into exploded. The power of the profound whale bloodline in his body seemed to have been pushed to the extreme. At this moment, he couldn't maintain the profound whale body anymore and turned into a human. After all, Lan Ming hadn't cultivated the complete whale transformation technique. His transformation into a profound whale was forced by the profound whale bloodline in his body. He could only maintain it for a short period of time. After suffering such a serious injury, Lan Ming couldn't maintain the profound whale body anymore and returned to his human form. His power had also fallen to the lowest point, less than 1% of his peak state. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky. This bolt of lightning contained an extreme black color. The pitch-black lightning contained an endless amount of destructive power. The power contained within this thunderbolt was only extreme destruction. It was capable of destroying everything in the world. The Deva tribulation had officially descended. Rolling thunderbolts suddenly fell. Hundreds of such destructive thunderbolts fell in an instant. Any one of these destructive thunderbolts could easily kill a half-step Deva realm martial artist or demon immortal. Hundreds of destructive thunderbolts fell at the same time. Even a Deva realm expert couldn't withstand it. The moment the destructive thunderbolts fell, Chu Fengmian felt a sense of danger. In an instant, the shadow of a giant divine tree appeared behind Chu Fengmian. Shadow of the divine tree. The divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body had grown and could form a shadow to protect Chu Fengmian. However, even the power of the divine tree was insignificant in front of the heavenly tribulation. Hundreds of destructive thunderbolts turned into a sharp sword in the air. A sword of destruction formed by thunderbolts slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Rumble! The arrival of the sword of destruction was simply going to destroy everything in the world. Chu Fengmian could feel that his body was on the verge of being destroyed. The divine tree's shadow only lasted for a few breaths of time before it exploded with a loud bang. The Deva tribulation was incomparably terrifying. In history, countless monstrous geniuses had died under the Deva tribulation. Moreover, Lan Ming had triggered the Deva tribulation this time. There were two people among the targets of the Deva tribulation, which increased the power of the Deva tribulation by several times. Immortal true body. I am immortal! Chu Fengmian roared. The tiny figures formed by the 129,600 immortal crystals in his body suddenly shattered. The 129,600 immortal crystals all merged into Chu Fengmian's body, pushing his physical strength to the extreme. Rumble! After destroying the shadow of the divine tree, the sword of destruction violently bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. The immortal crystals shook violently as if they couldn't bear the terrifying power. The power of the Sword of Destruction was much stronger than the attack of the waterfront sword Ocean Emperor that Chu Fengmian had fought before. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body had been reborn and reached a new level after being refined by the sorcerer god Chaotic Pill. The moment these 129,600 immortal crystals fused into Chu Fengmian's body, Chu Fengmian's fleshly body defense increased tenfold. However, Chu Fengmian still had a hard time resisting the Sword of Destruction. His physical body could be destroyed at any time. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1971. However, even at such a critical moment, Chu Fengmian's eyes were still observing Lan Ming beside him. Chu Fengmian's goal was to kill Lan Ming. This was his ultimate goal. The celestial tribulation descended. Not only Chu Fengmian, but Lan Ming beside him was also killed by the Sword of Destruction. Compared to Chu Fengmian, Lan Ming was even more miserable. Lan Ming was already seriously injured, and now he was killed by the Sword of Destruction. His body had been destroyed dozens of times. Although an expert like Lan Ming could instantly reconstruct his body even if it was destroyed, he would lose a part of his power every time his body was destroyed and reconstructed as long as he didn't condense an immortal true body. This was one disaster after another for Lan Ming. Lan Ming's body was once again destroyed and reconstructed by the Sword of Destruction. Chu Fengmian already felt that Lan Ming's power was already extremely weak. This is the opportunity. Kill. Chu Fengmian seized the opportunity and disregarded the Sword of Destruction's attack. He suddenly tore the space apart with the power of Ancestor Tianlong. In an instant, Chu Fengmian arrived behind Lan Ming. The human emperor's halberd had disappeared from his hand and was replaced by a spiritual sword. Extremely strange sword. Tua Luo. The 6th move of the 9 profound sword art. It was also the strangest sword move in the 9 mysterious sword technique. The sudden slash caught Lan Ming off guard. Lan Ming never dreamed that Chu Fengmian could actually attack him while blocking the Sword of Destruction. Boom! Lan Ming's body was instantly penetrated by the sword. The sword ruthlessly pierced Lan Ming's chest. At the same time, the countless sword intents behind Chu Fengmian condensed into the blade of the sword and penetrated Lan Ming's body. Bang! Countless sword chi wreaked havoc in Lan Ming's body. His body was instantly blown apart. However, for someone like Lan Ming, even if his body was blown apart, it couldn't be considered as killing him. Lan Ming's strength could already be considered a true celestial realm expert. For him, as long as there was still a drop of essence blood left, he could reconstruct his body and recover. Chu Fengmian was well aware of this. Chu Fengmian's left hand unleashed another sword light as he watched Lan Ming's body explode in the air and his essence blood splattered all over. Destroy! This sword light slashed towards the countless blood essences of Lan Ming in the air. He wanted to exterminate all the essence blood in Lan Ming's body and kill him completely. You want to kill me? Not so easy. Explode for me. Even if I die today, I'll drag you down with me. Lan Ming's shattered body suddenly condensed into human-sized figures and flew toward Chu Fengmian. These balls of essence blood suddenly exploded the moment they approached Chu Fengmian. Lan Ming had gone completely crazy. He knew that he couldn't save himself today, so he didn't plan to escape. Instead, he wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and perish with him. These balls of essence blood were the condensation of Lan Ming's life strength, but now they were going to explode to attack Chu Fengmian. You want to explode? Chu Fengmian saw Lan Ming's actions and knew that Lan Ming wanted to fight to the death. As long as he could entangle Chu Fengmian, the power of the celestial tribulation would be enough to annihilate Chu Fengmian. The power of the Sword of Destruction had just disappeared. Suddenly, more tribulation lightning began to condense in the tribulation clouds in the sky. Bolts of tribulation lightning filled with the power of destruction condensed in the sky. This time, the number was much more than before. There were thousands of bolts. There were so many tribulation lightning bolts that could be transformed into 10 bolts of destruction. There was no possibility of resisting 10 swords of destruction descending at the same time. He would probably die on the spot. Devour! Of course, Chu Fengmian wasn't alarmed. He watched as the blood essence flew toward him, and its power reached a peak. It was on the verge of exploding. Suddenly, he pushed the power of the heaven-devouring secret technique to its limit. Sky-devouring secret technique. Devour the heavens. An incomparably huge vortex appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. All of a sudden, Lan Ming's blood essence approached Chu Fengmian and didn't even have time to self-detonate before he felt an enormous attractive force and was devoured by the Sky-Devourer secret technique. Once they were devoured by the Sky-Devouring secret technique, the blood essences were no longer under Lan Ming's control. The connection was completely severed. The violent power gradually calmed down and turned into an incomparably pure power that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. Lan Ming had intended to explode his blood essences to fight to the death with Chu Fengmian. However, he hadn't expected that all of his blood essences would be devoured by Chu Fengmian and turned into Chu Fengmian's power. No! Lan Ming's face turned ashen when he saw this scene. He originally wanted to fight to the death. However, at that moment, his blood essence had instead benefited Chu Fengmian. It had become Chu Fengmian's power. Damn it! Damn it! Lan Ming was extremely furious. He wanted to make a final struggle, but the blood essences devoured by the Sky-Devouring secret technique were completely severed from him. They no longer belonged to him. Now, Lan Ming could only struggle at death's door. Die! Chu Fengmian didn't intend to give Lan Ming any chance. His sword light flashed and the remaining blood essences of Lan Ming were completely destroyed. Lan Ming's aura disappeared from the world, proving that this peerless genius had fallen. Let's go! Chu Fengmian grabbed and an empty ring fell from the sky into his palm. It was Lan Ming's empty ring. After grabbing Lan Ming's empty ring, Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate to fly out of the desolate sea. Great, the spiritual power contained in Lan Ming's blood essences is really terrifying. Chu Fengmian felt that only a part of the blood essences had been refined. The power in Chu Fengmian's body had already reached the peak. His realm could break through at any time. Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming. The Sky-Devouring secret technique was continuously devouring Lan Ming's blood essences for Chu Fengmian's use. If this continued, Chu Fengmian could officially break through to the half-step celestial being realm. However, the most important thing now was to leave the range of the celestial being tribulation and avoid the pursuit of the tribulation thunder. Chu Fengmian transformed into Ancestor Tianlong. The speed of the escape light was extremely fast. In an instant, he arrived at the edge of the desolate sea. He had already escaped the range of the celestial being tribulation. However, just as Chu Fengmian was about to let out a sigh of relief, a thunderous rumble suddenly resounded. This caused Chu Fengmian's originally relaxed heart to once again tighten. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1972. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the sky. The Great Tribulation of the Deva was now above Chu Fengmian's head. The Great Tribulation of the Deva was actually following Chu Fengmian. Thunderbolts of destruction were still condensing, ready to descend at any time. What's going on? Why is the Great Tribulation of the Deva chasing me? Chu Fengmian looked at the Great Tribulation of the Deva. He couldn't understand it for a moment. The Great Tribulation of the Deva should belong to Lan Ming. Now that Lan Ming was dead, the Great Tribulation of the Deva should gradually disperse. But now, not only did the great tribulation of the Deva not disperse, but it was also chasing after Chu Fengmian. It was as if it would not stop until Chu Fengmian was dead. This was simply beyond common sense. Chu Fengmian had read countless ancient books and seen countless records of the great tribulation of the Deva, but he had never seen such a strange thing. A variant of the heavens and earth? Could it be that the heavenly Tao doesn't tolerate me as a variant of the heavens and earth, so it wants to use the great tribulation of the Deva to kill me? In an instant, Chu Fengmian suddenly thought of something. A variant of the heavens and earth. Chu Fengmian had transcended the heaven-defying great tribulation of the heavens and earth. His body had integrated with the primordial qi and had become a variant of the heavens and earth. But this kind of variant of the heavens and earth was not tolerated by the heavenly Tao. Chu Fengmian originally thought that the heavenly Tao would only take action when he went to transcend the great tribulation of the Deva and seize the opportunity to kill him. But he didn't expect that this time, it actually used Lan Ming's great tribulation of the Deva to kill Chu Fengmian. Lan Ming was dead, but the power of the great tribulation of the Deva didn't decrease at all. Instead, it condensed more and more tribulation lightning. Countless tribulation lightning began to condense in the center of the tribulation cloud. Chu Fengmian glanced over and vaguely saw that the countless tribulation lightning had condensed into a total of 10 swords of destruction. A sword of destruction had almost destroyed Chu Fengmian's physical body. This time, a total of 10 swords of destruction had descended. This was simply not giving Chu Fengmian any chance to survive, and wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. Damn it! In order to kill Lan Ming, Chu Fengmian had set up an extremely intricate plan that could be said to be flawless. However, he had never expected that the heavenly Tao would suddenly attack Chu Fengmian at this time. If it was an ordinary celestial tribulation, Chu Fengmian still had some possibility of resisting it. However, the Deva tribulation this time was triggered by Chu Fengmian and Lan Ming together. Its power was countless times stronger than an ordinary Deva tribulation. It was almost impossible for Chu Fengmian to resist the celestial tribulation. Dangerous, extremely dangerous. Chu Fengmian had killed Lan Ming, but the great celestial tribulation was much more dangerous than Lan Ming's. There was simply no chance of survival. The heavens want me dead, but now that I've become a mutant of heaven and earth, I have to defy the heavens. Chu Fengmian activated all his power at the same time. At this time, he also knew that no matter where he fled to, the Deva tribulation would not let Chu Fengmian go. He might as well fight it out here. The power of the sky-devouring secret technique was activated to the extreme as it frantically refined Lan Ming's essence blood. Chu Fengmian's power had reached its peak in an instant. The power emanating from Chu Fengmian's body was enough to distort the surrounding world. Roar! Roar! The dragon roared, and the shadow of primogenitor Tianlong also appeared behind Chu Fengmian. The shadow of the sky-devouring beast also condensed behind Chu Fengmian. His entire body turned into a huge vortex, a huge black hole. Chu Fengmian opened the empty ring, and suddenly countless immortal stones flew out. As soon as these immortal stones flew out, they were vaporized and turned into extremely pure immortal power that poured into the black hole. Breaking through to the next realm. Chu Fengmian was in an extremely dangerous situation. He wanted to break through to the half-step celestial realm. Chu Fengmian had no chance of survival when these 10 swords of destruction descended. He had no ability to resist at all. At this time, his only hope was to break through to the next realm. As long as Chu Fengmian could successfully break through the realm and step into the half-step celestial being realm, Chu Fengmian's strength would rise countless times. At that time, it would be the only chance to resist the celestial being tribulation. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to leave the Songhai starfield after making all the necessary preparations to find a secret and safe place to break through to the next realm. However, at this time, he no longer had the ability to do so. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian had already accumulated a large amount of immortal stones and refined the lesser flying immortal pills. Chu Fengmian opened the empty ring, and the lesser flying immortal pills flew out and fell into the black hole vortex. They turned into pure medicinal power and poured into Chu Fengmian's body. More than 600 immortal stones and 19 lesser, flying immortal pills were all devoured by the black hole vortex that Chu Fengmian had turned into. Boom! From the black hole vortex that Chu Fengmian had turned into, a tyrannical and boundless power was transmitted. This power condensed again and again and again, as if it wanted to break the shackles on Chu Fengmian's body and break through to a higher level. Chu Fengmian's power had reached an unprecedented level. As the immortal power merged into Chu Fengmian's body was transforming. His whole person was sublimating. Boom! At this moment, in the tribulation clouds above the sky, the 10 swords of destruction had been condensed. The moment the 10 swords of destruction were condensed, they did not hesitate and slashed towards Chu Fengmian below. Chu Fengmian's breakthrough at this time was not allowed by the heavenly Tao. The swords of destruction were sent down to kill Chu Fengmian. Sword out! Chu Fengmian roared again and again. Both of his swords were sent out to block the 10 swords of destruction. The 10 swords of destruction slashed down together. Its power was 10 times more terrifying than the one that Chu Fengmian had blocked before. However, this time around, Chu Fengmian was no longer the same as before. After over 600 immortal stones and 19 small flying immortal pills were all assimilated into Chu Fengmian's body, Chu Fengmian's strength increased by countless times. Break for me! The sword intent of the sword god realm condensed on the edge of the sword. Chu Fengmian slashed out with both of his swords and fiercely slashed at the 2 swords of destruction. Rumble! A loud sound was heard. The collision of power had reached its peak. In an instant it was enough to destroy countless times. But Chu Fengmian was not afraid at all. His sword swept down. Boom! The 2 swords of destruction were suddenly shattered. They were forcibly severed by Chu Fengmian's sword. At the same time, another incomparably huge shadow appeared behind Chu Fengmian. This shadow was an incomparably huge whale with 2 fins like wings. It was the innate divine beast, the ancestor of the Sea Clan, the black whale. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Version. Chapter 1973. The dark whale phantom suddenly condensed behind Chu Fengmian. Boom! The power of the dark whale erupted from Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian condensed his second source, which originally contained the power of ancestor Tianlong, heaven-devouring beast, and Ting Shi. However, among these 3 powers, the power belonging to the soaring serpent was too weak and could not be condensed into a shadow. This time, as Chu Fengmian devoured Lan Ming's blood essence, the dark whale bloodline that belonged to Lan Ming's blood essence was also devoured and integrated into Chu Fengmian's bloodline. Lan Ming's dark whale bloodline had been plundered from countless disciples of the Lan family. It was already extremely pure. Chu Fengmian devoured all of Lan Ming's blood essence. The power of the dark whale was also condensed into Chu Fengmian's second source, turning into his own power. Although Chu Fengmian couldn't control the Sea Clan's source like he could control the dragon source and heaven-devouring source, he could use the power of the dark whale. The condensed dark whale phantom appeared behind Chu Fengmian, supporting Chu Fengmian with the power of the dark whale. Chu Fengmian's power skyrocketed. Chu Fengmian's strength was increasing at every moment. Layers upon layers of shackles were forcibly broken by Chu Fengmian's strength. Chu Fengmian wanted to break everything. His power skyrocketed endlessly. His physical body, his sword Tao, the divine tree in his body, the power of his bloodline, and all his other powers were skyrocketing. This was not just an increase in power, but a comprehensive upgrade. The half-step celestial realm had the word celestial, which meant that after stepping into the half-step celestial realm, the changes were completely different from those in the Emperor realm. Boom! Boom! Above the sky, the countless thunderbolts in the celestial tribulation seemed to become angrier. The heavenly way didn't allow Chu Fengmian's realm to advance any further. The remaining 8 swords of destruction slashed down at Chu Fengmian at the same time. The violent power of destruction descended along with the swords of destruction, wanting to penetrate Chu Fengmian's body and destroy him completely. Want to stop me? No one can stop me, not even the heavenly way. I'm going against the heavens and I'm not afraid of anything. No one can stop it. Chu Fengmian stood up and let out a long roar as he swung both swords. In an instant, tens of thousands of sword lights were unleashed, heading toward the remaining 8 swords of destruction in the sky. Crack! Crack! The destructive swords were all shattered by Chu Fengmian's sword. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's physical body was pushed to the extreme. He was not afraid in the face of the destructive power. Waves of spiritual power erupted from Chu Fengmian's body and turned into barriers to resist the erosion of the destructive power. At the center of all the destructive power, not even celestial realm cultivators could withstand it. Even the mad dragon emperor, who was outside the desolate sea, could clearly feel the terrifying destructive power in the desolate sea. The descent of these destructive forces made him feel incomparably terrified. What the hell is going on? How could the celestial tribulation have such power? It's said that the destructive swords only appear when geniuses go through the celestial tribulation. Now there are so many of them. The celestial tribulation should have dissipated with Lan Ming's death. How could it still exist and become stronger? The mad dragon emperor looked at the celestial tribulation in the desolate sea and was extremely shocked. Even with his experience, he could not figure out what had happened. This scene was beyond anyone's understanding. It was something that no one could understand. However, what made the mad dragon emperor even more shocked was Chu Fengmian's power in the desolate sea. In the face of such a terrifying celestial tribulation, Chu Fengmian was still resisting it. Even his power was still rising. In a few moments, Chu Fengmian's aura was not below his. Even if Chu Fengmian had really broken through, he was only a half-step celestial realm. There was still a huge gap between him and the celestial realm. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had not really broken through to the half-step celestial realm. Chu Fengmian's power was still accumulating and rising bit by bit. It was far from reaching the limit. This simply scared the mad dragon emperor to death. He had also seen countless monstrous geniuses, but these so-called monstrous geniuses were simply not worth mentioning when compared to Chu Fengmian. Even the monstrous geniuses recorded in the ancient books and left their names in the annals of history could not compare to Chu Fengmian. Rumble. While the mad dragon emperor was thinking, a more powerful spiritual energy fluctuation was transmitted from the desolate sea. Above the desolate sea, among the countless tribulation clouds, a huge thunderbolt was slowly condensing. This thunderbolt was extremely thick and contained much more violent power than the destructive sword. The thunder of destruction. How is it possible? Didn't this kind of apocalyptic thunder only appear during the great mysterious heaven tribulation? How can it appear at this time? The mad dragon emperor trembled when he saw this huge thunderbolt. Just the aura it contained was enough to make him feel incomparably terrified. Once this thunderbolt descended, it would be the real end of the world. It was said that the thunder of destruction would only appear when a celestial realm expert broke through to the profound heaven realm. He did not expect it to appear this time. The thunder of destruction. This damnable heavens really wants to kill me. Chu Fengmian also felt that the thunder of destruction was hidden among the tribulation clouds. The obliteration thunderbolt was accumulating power. All the thunderbolts in the tribulation cloud were fusing into the obliteration thunderbolt. Chu Fengmian could see that this thunder of destruction was actually in an incomplete state. No matter how strong the tribulation lightning was, it could not condense the complete thunder of destruction. One should know that the power of a thunder of destruction was hundreds of times stronger than the sword of destruction. The thunder of destruction in the tribulation clouds should only be 1/10 of the power of the real thunder of destruction. However, even 1/10 was equivalent to the power of dozens of sword of destruction. Once it descended, even a celestial realm expert would be killed. Come, this thunder of destruction will be my help. It will help me step into the half-step celestial realm. Half-step celestial realm. Break through for me. Chu Fengmian roared and suddenly grabbed Lan Ming's empty ring. He opened Lan Ming's empty ring and 1,000 immortal stones flew out. There were more than 1,000 immortal stones in Lan Ming's empty ring. It was the accumulation of his life. End of chapter. Chapter 1974. Chu Fengmian took out more than 1,000 immortal stones from the blue infernal sky ring. Like a small mountain, they flew directly into the black hole formed by Chu Fengmian's body and were all refined and devoured. 1,000 immortal stones. Even a celestial realm powerhouse might not have so much wealth. But this time, Chu Fengmian did not hesitate to devour and refine the 1,000 immortal stones, turning them into incomparably pure immortal power that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. 1,000 immortal stones were enough to help some half-step celestial realm martial artists and demon immortals step into the celestial realm. But now they were all being devoured by Chu Fengmian to advance to the half-step celestial realm. This kind of generosity was unimaginable. But now Chu Fengmian had no time to hesitate. If Chu Fengmian couldn't withstand this thunder of destruction, he would die. By then, no amount of wealth would make any difference. The 1,000 immortal stones were refined by the power of the heaven-devouring secret technique and turned into pure immortal power that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. Such a huge amount of immortal power was simply going to fill Chu Fengmian to death. It could be said that any half-step celestial realm martial artist would be stuffed to death if they devoured 1,000 immortal stones in one breath. They had to refine the immortal stones one by one. But Chu Fengmian refined the 1,000 immortal stones in one breath at the same time. The tyrannical immortal power crashed wildly in Chu Fengmian's body, trying to smash it into pieces. Hold on! Chu Fengmian roared. Second origin. Heaven-devouring beast. First ancestor Tianlong. Xian Jing. Devour. Behind him, the heaven-devouring beast, first ancestor Tianlong and Xian Jing. These three incomparably huge phantoms were frantically absorbing the immortal power in Chu Fengmian's body. As more and more immortal power was absorbed, the power of these three phantoms also became more and more tyrannical. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's power reached the limit and stopped. The bottleneck of the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. Even though Chu Fengmian had swallowed so many immortal stones in one go, he still couldn't break through the bottleneck of the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. In the eyes of others, this was simply an unbelievable sight. Even the bottleneck of the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu, could not be broken through by such immense power. However, Chu Fengmian was clear that he had encountered countless miraculous encounters and heaven-defying opportunities in his life. He had even overcome a heaven-defying tribulation, allowing his physical body to fuse with the primordial qi, allowing him to become a mutated species of the world. These various fortuitous encounters made Chu Fengmian powerful, but also became his bottleneck. Only when Chu Fengmian had all these fortuitous encounters would he be able to break through the bottleneck and officially break through. The second origin. Promotion. Roar, roar, roar. 3 different beastly roars resounded from behind Chu Fengmian. The illusionary figures of the 3 innate godly beasts had absorbed a huge amount of immortal force. They had gathered their strength to the limit and unleashed it all of a sudden. As the roar echoed out, the surrounding heaven and earth began to tremble. The three pre-heaven godbeasts were making a breakthrough. Chu Fengmian's second origin was the first to be promoted. Next was Chu Fengmian's physical body. His physical body was once again promoted. The divine tree in his body and the ancient swordsmanship books in Chu Fengmian's body were all promoted after absorbing immortal force. Every promotion made Chu Fengmian's strength a step further. There was only one part of Chu Fengmian's body that had yet to be promoted. The first origin. Chu Fengmian's first origin was his natal sword origin. It was the natal sword origin condensed from the power of creation. The natal sword origin was the core of a sword cultivator. Although Chu Fengmian had encountered countless fortuitous encounters, he was ultimately a sword cultivator. Chu Fengmian's natal sword origin was condensed from the power of creation. What he lacked now was neither spiritual nor immortal force, but the power of creation. There was only one way to obtain the power of creation: heavenly tribulation. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the sky. The power of heavenly tribulation was the power of creation. Whether it was the sword of destruction or the thunder of annihilation, the core of their power was the power of creation. Chu Fengmian's gaze penetrated the tribulation clouds and could clearly see the power of creation contained within the thunder of annihilation. You want to destroy the world? Then I'll destroy you first. Chu Fengmian looked at the thunder of annihilation. In an instant Chu Fengmian's body moved. His figure rushed into the ninth heaven and rushed towards the thunder of annihilation. Shocking sword intent condensed on the blade of Chu Fengmian's sword. The moment Chu Fengmian drew his sword blade was about to tear the sky apart. The sword that split the sky was aimed at the countless tribulation clouds in the sky. The thunder of annihilation was accumulating power to destroy Chu Fengmian. Today, Chu Fengmian was going to destroy the thunder of annihilation and devour its power to promote his natal sword origin. Chu Fengmian's sword blade cut through the layers of tribulation clouds. Chu Fengmian's figure rushed into the tribulation clouds in an instant. This scene was simply crazy to the extreme. In the face of the celestial tribulation and the thunder of annihilation, Chu Fengmian chose not to resist but to take the initiative to attack. Since ancient times, in the face of heavenly tribulation, the only way was to resist it. But now, Chu Fengmian was going to break the tribulation lightning and devour it. This action was incomparably crazy. Rumble! The world-exterminating thunder let out thunderous booms that were enough to make people faint. It seemed to be filled with boundless anger as it suddenly bombarded Chu Fengmian, wanting to kill him completely. Edited by Lifer, Fingerfox. The world-exterminating thunder descended. The mighty thunderbolts were like a long river. This long river was filled with calamity thunder. Wherever the thunderbolts passed, all living things would be destroyed. No wonder it was called the world-exterminating thunder. Chu Fengmian was drawn into the center of the thunder of annihilation. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's body was about to be destroyed by the destructive power. Bam, 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 bam. A series of sounds came from Chu Fengmian's body. His physical body, his immortal true body, and the 129,600 immortal crystals in it were even broken by the destructive power. Even if the physical body of a demon god warrior with an immortal true body was destroyed, the 129,600 immortal crystals could not be damaged. This was also the reason why the immortal true body was called immortal. As long as the immortal crystals were still there, even if the physical body was destroyed many times, it could be rebuilt. But now the immortal true body was broken. If this continued, the immortal true body condensed by Chu Fengmian might be destroyed. The immortal true body was not really immortal. It would still be destroyed by the thunder of annihilation. End of chapter. Chapter 1975. Bolts of lightning destroyed the immortal crystals and poured into Chu Fengmian's body, destroying it. Chu Fengmian could feel that his immortal true body was about to be destroyed by the apocalyptic lightning. At this moment, Chu Fengmian's mind was extremely calm. Inside his body, the heaven-devouring force was boiling. The heaven-devouring shadow and Chu Fengmian merged into one. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's body moved. His body became hundreds or thousands of times larger than before. His heaven-devouring origin. At this moment, his comprehension of the Tao of heaven-devouring had reached a whole new level. I am the heaven-devourer, devouring eternity. So what if it's tribulation lightning? So what if it's the heavenly Tao? The moment the heaven-devouring force enveloped Chu Fengmian's body, he suddenly transformed into a heaven-devouring beast and roared crazily. This roar shook the heavens and earth. Many creatures trembled when they heard this roar. The fear contained in their ancient bloodline was awakened. It was as if the real heaven-devouring beast had been awakened. The huge heaven-devouring beast opened its mouth like a bottomless black hole. Countless tribulation lightning were devoured by it. In the deepest part of the black hole, a 7-inch spiritual sword suddenly condensed. All the tribulation lightning that was devoured by the black hole was absorbed by the 7-inch spiritual sword. This 7-inch spiritual sword was Chu Fengmian's natal sword origin. It was the sword of creation formed by the power of creation. The tribulation lightning's power, even if it contained the power to destroy the world, belonged to the power of creation after all. Bolts of tribulation lightning were devoured by the 7-inch spiritual sword and condensed into ancient patterns on the sword's body. Boom! A loud sound suddenly resounded. With Chu Fengmian as the center, a powerful spiritual energy suddenly erupted and swept across everything. Chu Fengmian transformed from the heaven-devouring beast into his true body. At the same time, in the center of the black hole, after absorbing countless tribulation lightning, the sword of creation's power had also condensed to the extreme. In the next moment, it underwent a transformation. This spiritual energy was the power of creation. The power of creation burst out from Chu Fengmian's body and impacted everything around him. Countless tribulation lightning that approached Chu Fengmian's body exploded under the impact of the power of creation. Chu Fengmian's aura rose steadily. His momentum was to penetrate everything. Suddenly, it seemed that the shackles that had been binding Chu Fengmian were broken. The bottleneck of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu was finally broken. The upgrade of the Sword of Creation had finally allowed Chu Fengmian to break through the bottleneck of the 9 tribulation ancient emperor. His realm's tribulation realm. His spiritual swords of the realm of creation had had to creation of creation of creation of creation of creation of creation. The tribulations's tribulations. The tribulation to be to the tribulation to tribulation tribulation to tribulation. His realm was his tribulation was realms. Was realm to reach realm. It's to breakthrough to me. Chu Fengmian was extremely excited when he felt the surging power in his body. He had been trapped in the realm of 9 tribulations Emperor Gu for a long time. Even though he had obtained countless opportunities, he could not break through. Now, with the help of the thunder of annihilation, the immortal stones Chu Fengmian had accumulated, and countless opportunities, he finally broke through the Emperor realm and stepped into the half-step celestial realm. Once he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, Chu Fengmian would be on the path of celestial beings. He would be separated from the mortals. He was half a step into the immortal gate. At this moment, Chu Fengmian's hard work and the opportunities he had obtained had paid off. His strength, his swordsmanship, his body, and his source had all undergone earth-shaking changes. Chu Fengmian even vaguely felt that with the improvement of his realm, the countless opportunities he had obtained had undergone new changes. Chu Fengmian had obtained countless heaven-defying opportunities. Whether it was the immortal real body or the swordsmanship in the sword principle totem, these things were beyond the comprehension of Emperor Realm. especially the incomplete swordsmanship in the sword principle totem. After stepping into the half-step celestial realm, Chu Fengmian's comprehension of the sword principle had improved. He could vaguely see that there were more secrets hidden in this incomplete swordsmanship. After stepping into the half-step celestial realm, Chu Fengmian's strength had not only changed, but also his whole body and mind had been promoted. Thunder of Annihilation? Chu Fengmian suddenly opened his eyes. Looking at the river of thunder of annihilation around him, he suddenly unsheathed his spirit sword. This sword seemed to contain the sword intent of Chu Fengmian's sword god realm, the power of the three innate divine beasts, and the power of fortune in his natal sword spirit. All these were condensed in this sword light. Boom! As the tip of Chu Fengmian's sword fell, the sword light swept across the surroundings and collided with the world-extinguishing thunder. Boom! Under this sword light, the thunder of annihilation was shattered. Countless tribulation thunderbolts were all scattered. The power of this sword had forcibly shattered the thunder of annihilation. Looking at the countless drifting tribulation thunderbolts, Chu Fengmian suddenly opened his mouth. The power of the sky-devouring secret technique was pushed to the extreme, and an incomparably huge vortex condensed. Countless tribulation thunderbolts were devoured by the sky-devouring secret technique, transformed into the power of fortune, and integrated into Chu Fengmian's natal sword spirit. After devouring countless tribulation thunderbolts, the 7-inch natal sword spirit grew a little bigger and became 9 inches in size. Its appearance did not change much, but the power of fortune it contained had really increased by several times. This time, the thunder of annihilation did not destroy Chu Fengmian. Instead, it helped Chu Fengmian step into the half-step celestial realm. Restore! Chu Fengmian shouted. In his body there were still balls of immortal power left, and they all poured into the broken immortal crystals. All the immortal crystals that had been shattered by the thunder of annihilation were all reformed after absorbing a large amount of immortal power. This newly condensed immortal crystal was much tougher than before it was shattered. The immortal crystals in Chu Fengmian's body had been condensed by absorbing spiritual power. This time, the reformed immortal crystals had absorbed the immortal power contained in the immortal stones. The power of the condensed immortal crystals was naturally much stronger. The quality of the power contained in immortal power was far above spiritual power. Compared to immortal power, the difference was like heaven and earth. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.